appreciate all the support that you've ever given us, and go Cog Prime.
And I want to make sure you get your trophy here as well, man. MVP, Sino, and his heavy, man. Make sure you hold on to it for me. MVP, raise it up for him, man.
It's just so incredible. I'm so happy. And, I've always wanted to tell my parents that I finally won this tournament. So Mom, Dad, I finally won Worlds.
Feels like I'm in a dream. I haven't woken up yet. Hopefully this dream never stops.
Splice are going to be your Season 5 World Champions. This is their moment. Untouched, unscathed, bow down to your kings, the Camelot Kings, champions of the world.
Happy Sunday, SMITE fans, and welcome back to another day of the SMITE Pro League. Here, our third day of Week 4 of the SPL in our Path to Masters. Not only is it a Sunday of SMITE, it's also a Happy Mother's Day. It's all the mothers out there supporting us in the SMITE game and just mothers in general. And also going to let a little bit out there that make sure you are tuning in all today because we do have drops on because Jordan did win Fantasy this week. So you get a bonus season of Hope Chest. And then one final shout as well to our POV streams that are being out there. So all the players that are in studio, you can check them out on their POV streams all throughout the day for our 3 sets. And man, we've got 3 insane sets to go through today. And the first one, probably the biggest one of them. I'm J-Mac. I got Mifflin joining me on the desk to run through these ones because Mifflin, man, we have got an insane startup to this day. Oni Warriors and the Camelot Kings as our first set of the day. We got the Eldritch Hounds going to be playing later against the Ravens as well. This is going to be a jam-packed Sunday of SMITE.
And a lot of implications on seedings throughout the day as well. First versus first. I think first seed versus first seed asterisk now, considering how much the Oni Warriors have separated themselves from the rest of the league, it feels like. I know there's divisional play and these two are on opposite sides, but it just feels like the Oni Warriors have got the SPL's number as a whole, whereas the Camelot Kings, although having a phenomenal season so far, perhaps dwarfed a bit by the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, so starting out today, Camelot Kings, Oni Warriors. After that, Jade Dragons and Gilded Gladiators. And then to close out our Sunday for week number 4 will be the Eldritch Hounds and the Highland Ravens. 2 big matchups today for major seeding implication possibilities. Taking a look at all of just the teams within the Order division. I mean, this has been a jam-packed year just to start out, and we still have one more week to go after this. Seeing the, honestly, I think you put it best, kind of the freshman year for some of these players and the Eldritch Hounds, the come up that they've had just in this phase, the leaps and bounds improvements just in their qualification up until this point. We can take a look at the standings to see how they've been able to match up. 3rd seed so far for the Eldritch Hounds with a 4-3. Only reason they're behind the Highland Ravens is that head-to-head matchup between the two of them. 6 Ferrymen hot on their heels at a 4-4 record as well. Order division is anything maybe but orderly at this point, and it feels like any single team after today's matchups and even with our still 2 more games that are going to be played next week, feels like anybody can take that top spot in the Order division. Meanwhile, opposite side, it's all Oni Warriors. 7-0 so far, a 10-set streak since the startup of the season with the kickoff tournament. Everybody else pretty far behind. 5 games is the closest one, and that's the 2nd seed Jade Dragons right behind them. Leviathans in that 3rd, and then the Gilded Gladiators. So even now today, potential in that division for there to be some shakeups in the standings. If Gilded Gladiators can find a win on the Dragons, you can see Gilded Gladiators make a couple of steps up, Miff.
Yeah, and the Gilded Gladiators would love to do that. But first, we've got other matches to watch, right? And I think the Oni Warriors versus the Camelot Kings deserves every bit of attention that we can give it. I'm really excited for this one. It feels like a squad, or a match rather, excuse me, that is going to be diametrically opposed in viewpoints. The Camelot Kings, so much slower. The Oni Warriors, so much faster. I've talked to some of the other pros, and they said the narrative of, Camelot Kings taking it late, maybe not as true as it used to be. Love playing through that pressure in lane, but if we're talking about pressure in lane, I mean, the Oni Warriors got it more than everybody else.
Yeah, the Camelot Kings definitely got a tall order going up against the Oni Warriors, and we can actually sit down for a moment and talk with the coach of the Camelot Kings as he's got a couple of words to say about his matchup.
That's right. I've got Biggie standing by. And Biggie, I do want to ask, because a lot of the conversation right now is Path to Masters, right? Especially as we're starting to close out this phase. I'm just kind of curious, first place in your division and getting that trip directly to Masters, how important is that to you and the team?
I think it's definitely important just having come from winning Worlds. I think it says a lot, you know, I don't think we're performing at our peak right now, but if we can win our group, says, okay, we haven't had the typical post-world slump, I guess. So in that point, it's important. But then again, I think there's always the conversation in SMITE where would you rather play through and just have more practice before the big games? So.
And there's always, the balancing point, the Zapman run, right, as we've gotten kind of used to it going into Worlds. I do have to ask, as you mentioned, your performance, as you said, maybe not living up to the standards you guys have for yourselves. A couple of unfortunate losses, one of them happening yesterday. What are your kind of thoughts on those sets and where the team's at?
I think Ferryman were improved. I think they were way more proactive than we expected as a team. I think they were a lot faster around the map game 1 than us, which caught us off guard. Game 2, we just had a terrible early game, and comp to comp, we were waiting for them to make a mistake, and I think we got a little impatient, didn't have enough discipline from behind, and they just walked over us.
Sometimes it happens, right? And catching them on the upswing. You guys are going up against now the Oni Warriors in this next set, who are undefeated. And so it's kind of a twofold question. How do you prepare for a team that plays the way they do, which is sometimes unpredictable? And then the other side of that is, are you going to be the guys that end their win streak?
Based on yesterday, sure, why not? I think Warriors are very difficult to play against just because you need about 8 bans to feel comfortable in the draft. But we have an idea of obviously how they want to play. It's quite obvious. And form to form, it's not looking in our favor, but hopefully we just put up a performance, better performance than yesterday. So.
Yeah, that's always going to be a solid game. I'm really excited for this one, but it's a rematch, right, from what we saw during the kickoff. I'm excited to see what it has, so good luck to you and to the team. Thanks for your time, and we'll go back to the desk to get us ready.
Maybe a little shaky there from the coach going up against the Oni Warriors, and how easy is it to really match up against a squad like the Oni Warriors? An undefeated team has gone to a few 3-game sets so far this phase, but usually always kind of reel it back. Once they get into that 3rd game, they say, okay, we're messing around. Let's lock down what we're best at. Let's do what we're best at, which is ending these games really quickly. So the Camelot Kings have a difficult matchup to go against. And kind of as mentioned there, maybe unexpecting how fast of the pace the Styx Ferrymen took their games just yesterday against the Camelot Kings, but now knowing how fast the Oni Warriors play would be something that Camelot Kings should expect, and everybody in the league has come to know for the identity of the Oni Warriors, because, man, this Oni Warriors team, this is one that we were kind of, I don't necessarily want to say doubting at the beginning of the season. We had that moment where it was like, this could be one of the best teams in the league, or it could be one of the worst. It just depends on how the players mesh when they all come together on the field. And right now, Mifflin, they are looking like the best team on the battleground.
I mean, just play on field from the Oni Warriors has set them head and shoulders above just about everyone else in the SPL. I think this is going to be a very significant test for them up against the Camelot Kings. I imagine the Camelot Kings have done a good deal of research on the Oni Warriors and how they elect to play. But even with that said, and how much research could you really do, the Oni Warriors don't hide anything. They're not bringing out different crazy compositions or catching you off guard with off-kilter picks. It's, we're going to play what we've been playing. We're going to play it very well, and we're going to play it very fast. I'd liken them, the Oni Warriors, to just a real fast punch. I can warn you that I'm about to punch you. You can see it coming. But if it's so fast you can't do anything about it and so strong that it knocks you out, what are you going to do about it? And there's nothing. There's no counterplay except for punch as fast and as hard as the Oni Warriors have been doing. So beating the Oni Warriors, I think, compositionally, Biggie says it takes 8 bans to feel comfortable. You haven't got that, at least not immediately. You got to work through a good deal of them and hope that the Oni Warriors ban out themselves, I suppose, a bit. Otherwise, it's just going to come down to play on field, as it always does here in SMITE. And as far as play on field is concerned, the Oni Warriors have consistently won every single one of their laning phases, and they've done it convincingly. The jungler, Panitom, has been diffing the entirety of the league. It's hard to come up with counterplay. It's hard to come up with strategy for beating the Oni Warriors because they just play so well. It feels like maybe once or twice this year we've seen them transition into a mid-game without a 2,000 or 3,000 gold lead.
Yeah, it really feels like this is one of the hardest teams to actually lock down, but at the same time, one of the easiest ones. As mentioned, you want to allocate a bunch of bans to this team, but you just can't, so then it comes down to just playing better than them more often than not. There are consistencies, at least among these players, as far as what kind of picks they tend to fluctuate towards more. If we look at Netrioid more than anybody else in the league, he's playing a lot of Cernunnos and Izanami are the ones that he's going to quite often, so maybe looking at prioritizing one of those bans if you want to take something away from him. You look at Panitom, he's playing Fenrir, Susano, Serqet. Those are kind of his top 3 at this point. So there are ways to slowly deal with this team, but you only get 3 bans, and you got to take a couple of picks maybe yourself away from this team. So then it does feel like it really just comes down to the play on field for the Kings against this squad.
Yeah, I think so. The Camelot Kings are capable of picking up their pace in the early game. Often, early game teams can either be fought in the early on their own playing field where you know they love playing the game aggressively, or you could say, look, our early game's just not going to stack up. Our laning phase is going to be as good. Let's, mitigate loss, build a composition for the late game. Things like double Cthulhu from Season 9 or double Hunter drafts or heavy CC lockdown into burst, long-range burst compositions that just play very well in the late game and pray that you get to that point. And in year 10, I would think that's probably the best strategy in the game right now, considering how easily and how often these SPL teams have been able to draw out these matches and have all 3 of their Phoenixes go down and then have them all 3 respawn and have them all 3 go down again. It's so difficult to close out the game. You'd think these late game slanted drafts would just be it. If every game just about is going to go 40 minutes, you're going to be 6 slotted, you're going to be level 20. So those compositions likely will hit full tilt, but not against the Oni Warriors, it doesn't seem like. The Oni Warriors have figured out how to close out these games, and they close them out very quickly given the opportunity. In year 10, the average game time is upwards of 35, 45, sometimes even 50 minutes on any given week. But the Oni Warriors are an aberration in that standard, where their game times are maybe at the most going to 35, but have kept the average about 10 to 15 minutes less than the rest of the league.
Yeah, I mean, if we look towards, kind of talking about the late game scaling, even the Leviathans did that yesterday, and it was working out fairly well against the Oni Warriors. We'll have to see if the Kings can do something similar up against the Oni Warriors. Can any team dethrone the Oni Warriors from their undefeated streak? As we jump into the picks and bans for game number 1 between the Warriors and the Kings. And Mythax is doing a little bit of talking with Gormizer. 13, that's the number of sets needed to break the record for most sets in a row in an SPL setting. And for the Oni Warriors, they would have to win out the entirety of this phase to hit that point. Currently sitting at 10 games, or 10 sets straight, I should say, for the Oni Warriors. Would need to win today and then both of their games next week if they want to take the new record for most sets. But all got to start here, at least in game number 1, and taking away a couple of pretty much just standard meta bans across the board for both these teams so far. Jake has been one of the pioneers of this Nox support in the SPL, making sure to take that one away, as well as the Vamana from the Camelot Kings. Those have been 2 crucial picks for both of these squads, in all honesty. And then Martikros and Hebo banned away by the Warriors.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors, I think, probably keeping eyes on double Hunter compositions here from the Camelot Kings. We'd seen them from the Leviathans. We know that the Camelot Kings are capable. BMT has taken that Marty pretty consistently this year. And the damage output from Marty, bar none, just ridiculous out of the Hunters. So get him off the table. It simplifies that early game laning phase. It alleviates some of the strong points of Marty, being that he's so safe in lane, would alleviate the Oni Warriors' want to rotate through mid. So having removed that line of safety, I think we probably finish out this ban phase with standard draft picks here from the Oni Warriors. The Camelot Kings, on the other hand, 8 bans is what Biggie has called for to feel comfortable up against the Oni Warriors. We'll probably get an idea of which 3 are the most priority. But I couldn't say exactly what the Camelot Kings have elected as the strongest picks for the Oni Warriors. I mean, the Nox makes perfect sense to me. I wouldn't have imagined Vamana finds himself on that list. I thought, if anything, the Camelot Kings would try really hard to grab that one for themselves. CaptainTwig loves that pick, has served him very well, and the ability to fight throughout the early game, the second you tick over to level 5, valuable for the Camelot Kings. A Fenrir ban to finish it out. A shot towards Panitom, but Panitom's God Pool runs far and deep. Not sure that's going to hurt him too much. Horus is the immediate response from the Oni Warriors, giving over a good deal of flexibility. Could be solo, could be support. Either way, going to bring linear initiation, lockdown on single target, and a whole lot of sustain. And that's not even bringing up the global mobility that not only he has, but he affords to the entirety of his team.
Maybe just hitting the most successful gods for the Oni Warriors at least are the Camelot Kings of those bands. 100% win rate on the Nox for Jake for whatever short time he's been able to play it so far this phase. 100% win rate for SOT on the Vamana in the 5 games that he has played it. And 80% on the Fenrir for Panitom. With the Horus first pick, it leaves open a couple options for the Camelot Kings. There'll be early picks of the carries. Ram and Baba Yaga locked in for the Camelot Kings. Maybe most notable here so far, Myth, even though we weren't too big of fans of the pick yesterday. One that's been working well for Jake has been the Aphrodite, still left open. If the Warriors want to go with that, maybe throw the Horus into the solo lane for SOT. Hell also still notably open for some of the other mage supports that are out there. So maybe interesting and curious to see that the Camelot Kings are prioritizing their carries first.
Yeah, I had thought the Camelot Kings were just going to either grab one of the two, Guan Yu or Hercules, immediately. Instead, Baba Yaga locked in. And Baba Yaga has been incredibly powerful. I imagine BMT will try and go for the exact same build that Paul has been going for. That Prophetic just stacks up so quickly. The Charon's coin, the power spikes of this Baba Yaga build just very good. Generally second item. You can get involved on the map. Ram, though, is the lock-in first overall as well. Curious. Cern seems to have been that next up when Marty's taken off the table. The Camelot Kings veer away from that one. So do the Oni Warriors elect to take either the Herc or perhaps the Guan? Instead, it's the Merlin immediately, perhaps trying to avoid some bans in that second phase. And then the Hell that you had called for. That does likely leave the Horus over towards the soul lane for SOT. I imagine that the Hell is headed for support. Awesome Jake has been one of the best mage support players in the league right now, which is wild to say, considering last year and the year before, Jake was struggling with positioning. You'd think he'd want those Guardian stats, those Warrior stats, but no. Has looked very good with the Oni Warriors and in the conversation for most consistent and best supports in the league right now. I'm excited for this matchup already, man. The first 6 selections, both these teams are leaving nothing on the table.
Both these teams getting some of the top performing gods for the individual players. Every game that Jake has gotten this Hell has been a win. Same with Genetics on the Terra. So one of them finally going to notch a loss in the column after this game. But now with the Camelot Kings, the second wave of bans comes to them. No jungle selected for either team. So maybe for the Kings, more shots over at Panitom, or maybe start with Netrioid. Cernunnos and Izanami have been his top 2 gods to go to over in the Hunter role. Have been wildly successful on both of those. And Hun Bats, after what we saw yesterday up against some of our teams, may be wise to take away some of that AoE CC out of CaptainTwig's hands that has been such a potent pick for CaptainTwig throughout his career of play so far. Thor rounds out the bans for the Camelot Kings, so one pick over towards Netrioid, one at Panitom, making sure he doesn't have that semi-global pressure. The Oni Warriors now with one final ban will use Serqet, which actually made its way all the way through here. So now for the Camelot Kings, few options that can maybe go over for CaptainTwig. If we look at what he's played in the past so far, Bakasura, Ratatoskr, still available if he wants to go that way. And then Variety. Maybe a question mark on what he'll go. Hercules, again, making it through. It seems that teams aren't valuing the Hercules nearly as much, Mifflin.
Yeah, I mean, Hercules is very good, but I think the set yesterday where Susano starts camping that soul lane shows exactly some of the weaknesses of Hercules, which is that first item power spike. Golden Blade, great in the 1v1 in lane. Not exactly great when someone's willing to show up in your lane and actually hit you. So Hercules a bit susceptible to early game pressure and maybe dissuading for Variety from headed towards that pick. There's a whole lot of value on table, but I thought this would be the selection for the Camelot Kings. Susano not only acting as one of CaptainTwig's pocket picks, not exactly in his top 5, but certainly something he's played a fair bit in the past, but primarily a takeaway from Panitom, I think. You really want to get away from Panitom these high CC selections, things that can get the fight started. Looking at the composition from the Oni Warriors with just the top 3, one of the primary weaknesses of taking a mage into the support role that isn't Nox is that you are lacking hard CC, lacking consistent ways to start up the engagement. Susano, generally the answer to that. Oh, I'll just go with a Typhoon to start the fight, or I'll go with a Pull to start the fight. Not able to do that when Susano's been taken away from you. So instead, Daji as a core of hard CC for the Oni Warriors. I love Daji. I think she's very strong. I think she's got a phenomenal early game. Her team fight presence is amazing as well. But you really want someone burning beads for you to find value with the Pal-Al. Izanami can do it a little bit with a silence, but that's more so single target. Horus can do it, but also single target with his CC, which means in the team fight, in the late game, if there's been a couple of minutes between engagements, it's likely that Daji will go up into the Pal-Al and simply burn relics instead of setting up for her team.
Daji and Izanami round up the draft for the Warriors, the Susano, and now Tier for the Camelot Kings. Something for variety, gives him an extra bit of mobility, as well as an ultimate that'll help him maybe get away from some of these more mobile targets on the side of the Oni Warriors, notably the Horus, the Daji, able to chase down Tier fairly easily. So now that we look at the Camelot Kings draft, we're talking earlier on the Oni Warriors. It's definitely a team that loves to play early, loves to get aggressive, win their game by 25, sometimes no later than 30 minutes on average. Meanwhile, Camelot Kings, the team that wants to try and drag the game out a little bit later. So if the Camelot Kings can, and looking at their composition myth, do they have the tools to survive through the early game up against this Oni Warriors composition? And then once we get to that late game stride, do the Camelot Kings have a team that can stack up against the Warriors?
This is a very safe draft from the Camelot Kings. The only ones that likely struggled throughout the early game will be this Ram. Rotations from Daji could make it very difficult to be Jarcorrr. But besides that, Terra, one of the safer Guardians in the game, very good at just maneuvering throughout the early, ignoring a whole lot of the CC that the Oni Warriors could try and toss at her. Good amount of sustain there. Susano maneuvers the jungle very quickly, has a whole lot of mobility. So if the strategy is jump onto CaptainTwig and make sure he's having a tough game, you're going to have to find him first. And if he's playing safe, good luck doing that. Tier, of course, very, very survivable in lane. CC immunity ultimate. And Baba Yaga, to a certain extent, very safe throughout early as well. Once you get home sweet home, it becomes much more difficult to shut down this pick. And if you are going the prophetic cloak build, you'll stack it up pretty quickly and become a very tanky target. So I trust the Camelot Kings to be able to make it through the early game. Whether or not they can make it through unscathed always comes down to play on field, and feels like the Oni Warriors find their opportunities regardless of projected matchups or anything like that. They just simply play the game at that level, at that incredibly high level. But as for traditional SMITE knowledge and how this hits my eye as an analyst, I feel like the Camelot Kings have likely come away with a slightly stronger composition, at least in the late game 5-on-5. The Oni Warriors have done a whole lot of that, and I've said this a lot about the Oni Warriors. They don't often draft for that late game 5-on-5. They draft for rotating into that 5-on-5 or transitioning into it with a lead, and they're certainly capable of doing it. But if the Camelot Kings can't control pace or keep their head above water, I trust them to come out on top here.
A battle of early game versus late game. The undefeated Oni Warriors, will they be dethroned by the Camelot Kings? We'll find out at the start of it in game number 1 with our casters.
That's right. It's an undefeated streak for one of these teams. A couple of losses ticked up for the Kings. A couple more, Trelly, and maybe they would like. It's Gore, aforementioned Trelly, of course, Doug, to wander through this set together. And I'm really excited for this one. Jake on Hell support. That is immediately what my eyes gravitated to, something that we've seen kind of off and on. Yesterday you were talking, I think, in the Ferryman set. If you ignore the fact that Paul's really good at Hell, how much you liked seeing it in support maybe a little more than mid lately. Do you think, especially against some of the, not even, at least some of the CC on the Kings, that it's going to be helpful?
In this situation, you're looking at a Tier, right? And I'm thinking Tier only gets value if he's able to blink to the back line, if he's able to find those clutch fearlesses, and it doesn't seem like it's going to happen too often, right? As long as Awesome Jake is sitting in light stance, he's got those cleanses ready, it's going to be very difficult to try and set that up. So I'm thinking, for one, if Awesome Jake is on point, a lot of the single target CC here for the Camelot Kings falls flat.
Yeah.
But also that the movement speed starts to add up. You know, we SOT on this Horus can use the whole team's movement to get in, get out, that sort of thing. It really does start to add up in the team fight. So I'm thinking the Oni Warriors have a very strong draft they can get online, but the Camelot Kings, they're not ones to sit back early, right? They're not just going to say, oh, you have Hell, Izanami, we get out pressured. I wouldn't be surprised if Genetics and Jarcorrr try and get active here.
Well, we'll see. As of right now, They're locked under their tier 1. A little bit of extra damage going on to the Bastions. This is the other matchup I was really excited for. What a perfect time to pan over to the solo lane. Variety on tier, taking on the Horus already, we can see. Kind of bullying when it comes down to the lane, but I just think a pick in tier, maybe it's because of some of the changes that are coming up for him. Maybe it's just the fact that I've always really liked tier. I don't know what it is. He's just such a fun god to watch. And Variety on this pick specifically feels like it is going to be maybe even more of a nuisance than normal, especially for SOT, it seems, as in lane. Tier's been getting the better end of these trades.
Yeah, it's difficult as a Horus to try and match up against Tier early on. Most Bluestone Warriors are going to get the better end of the clear. It's just, Horus is so strong at level 2, right? I've seen a lot of First Bloods at that level 2 mark right when you're able to get access to your full CC chain. But Tier doesn't care too much about it, especially if you're able to immune that knockup with the Fearless. So Variety should be getting the better end for a bit. And remember, he does have Blink. But SOT went into the beads, maybe fearing the aggression that could come from CaptainTwig and Variety on that CC chain. So I don't think there's going to be too much action over in the solo lane just because of how safe Horus can be. You can dash to your Bastions using your heal, and you can also just immune that CC with the beads. And mid lane as well. It seems like a very slow pace. Except for just Panitom, right? The dodge can get active essentially anywhere. Yeah. Everyone's forced into the beads because they're fearing this powwow. But with the blink, Panitom's got plenty of damage once he gets online. I want to see where he decides to get active because he seems to have the most freedom of where he can choose to fight. And Jarcorrr, oh my goodness.
Just hovering, right? Flirting with death.
Yep.
And maybe death likes it. Who knows? But so far, Jarcorrr is playing hard to get. For both the Warriors and for death. He hasn't fallen. Despite the pressure put on, you had mentioned maybe some of the matchups in the jungle. Panitom doesn't have that damage online yet. Twig tries to take that fight while he can. Gets the better end of the trade. And that's going to set up a blue buff invade. SOT has definitely been on the receiving end of a lot of aggression. But no, the team falls back just after it respawns, and instead are going to go for their own. Gives Panitom maybe the option to rotate back over.
Wow.
But we're getting invades somewhere no matter what. It might not be the blue, the green buff stripped away.
Genetics took the chest camp, the green buff. Awesome Jake and Netrioid stole purple, but now Genetics is going to attempt to steal his own purple back. No, they're not going for it. So a lot of invades, as you said. Unfortunately, Jarcorrr is not going to get access to a purple buff. That was taken away. But now Panitom's losing some farm because Genetics took away the green and the chest buff. So a lot of different camps mixing up here. It's still Warriors-sided at the moment, but the respawns of those camps do start to add up. You've got timers down, and we'll have to see where the duo lane ends up going. But the scraps in the jungle, that's what I was talking about. Panitom is going for Transcendence, but CaptainTwig's mirroring that build. So it seems like both of these junglers aren't feeling like they have to go in anytime soon. They want to get those Transcendence online. They want to get those stacks going. But Twig is going to sit here for a bit.
He's 5.
Yeah, he's got an option. I don't think Awesome Jake dies that easy, depending on the cleanse. But maybe that's what he's waiting for, is to see this duo lane step up one step too far.
Well, it seems like Twig's going to take the option fall back. This feels like one of those games, and I'm kind of curious if you feel the same way about this, where we might go like 12 minutes without a First Blood, but when First Blood happens, the floodgates open,
Yep.
right? Like that's it almost feels like that's the kind of pressure on these teams, and it really does depend on who gets it. And I think Panitom, as you had highlighted, especially now that he has the powwow, that becomes a much bigger threat than maybe we were anticipating in the first 5 levels. Still waiting to see where he goes. Beads up for all 3 that have it on the side of the Kings. So maybe the first powwow won't be the big impact ultimate. It'll be the beads puller. And then the second powwow will be the big impact ultimate, depending on where he goes. Or First Blood, maybe it can happen onto Variety. Maybe it can happen onto Genetics. Or maybe it'll happen onto SOT. Twig's in the jungle, right-hand side. Blue buff is up, so his options are invade, kill. And he's going to go for the invade. Very successful at that. Might even be able to go for the kill still. But instead is going to play it safe, falls back. Farm. Higher than First Blood here. And so they're going to play it slow.
I think it's just a smart call. There's just so much survivability here for this Horus, even with just Golden Blade.
He'll just like dash backwards.
Yeah, it could be an issue because
Ult away.
CaptainTwig doesn't want to use his beads for the kill, I would assume, because then Panitom can just bully him for the next 2 minutes or so, and that can be very annoying. You did get the beads down, but not enough to guarantee a kill, so CaptainTwig takes the invade, which is still a win for sure. And then Variety's going to get the better end of this lane for a little bit now because Sot was forced back. He missed a little bit of farm. The totem or the cooldown buff should be going down, but looks like Variety just wants to get some wards. But I tend to agree with what you were saying. Slow-paced early game until the floodgates open. And where will that be? I mean, Panitom clearly wanted to get active. That's why he started that blink, but has no option to do so. Looks like Sot forced in. I don't think he's got the dash in time. Just enough damage. That shield certainly going to help out. You could tell Variety wanted to finish off with that blue stance Fearless, but didn't quite have the damage.
He's got to, look, even if he's saying he's cool under pressure, Sot's heart had to be beating a little faster at that moment. Definitely a different stretch for what he was experiencing yesterday, right, in their games. So maybe more pressure on him. Maybe a time to turn it around, right? Gets out of that alive. That's a huge deal. Has to use his own beads, though. Opens himself up for a gank. Variety doesn't have beads, doesn't have ult, and Panitom
was on a ward.
Unfortunately, yeah, is dancing on a ward scene and won't be able to get close enough to get anything done. Plus, the cooldown buff goes over to Variety on top of that. So if you were getting bullied before, that Fearless is coming up just a little bit quicker. Sot doesn't have much to show for it.
And I think the tier, I mean, it's a difficult matchup into the Daji in particular. You're not going to find too much damage there, but tier is one of those soul laners that can easily solo a jungler if they try to show up, right? You have no protections, you're full damage, you're just this very squishy glass cannon style assassin. Variety is level 9 right now. He's doing big damage to these level 7 junglers if they decide to show up, but there is a bit of a scrap over here in the duo lane.
A lot of damage onto Jake, way more than maybe he's anticipating. Can't walk out of this one. Typhoon gonna get beadsed out by Netrioid. Snipes raining true, connect a few on to Panitom, but it's not enough damage. First blood still goes the way of the Kings, opening things up on Jake.
Yep, Jake a little bit too far forward there. Beautiful return, and Jarcorrr rather gets the credit for that kill. I thought Net had some good damage and might have been able to follow up, but once you see Rama go up into the snipes, he can stall for such a long time. CaptainTwig used the beads, but that was really all the CC they had was the Palo there from Panitom, and that's just not enough to get aggressive. As Pegon, I suppose, is stepping forward. He knows he can get a little bit aggressive towards the Bastions, but that's going to be it. Beautiful fight on the left side of the map. The question now becomes, can Panitom do anything with those beads being down for the next 2 minutes? CaptainTwig's going to have to watch his positioning. I mean, I'm thinking walking towards back camps isn't the worst idea here for Panitom. Just saying, hey, wherever I find the Susano, I can look to get aggressive. But you need that Palo up first. You need those extra cooldowns. And it's not going to be happening anytime soon, because that Jotuns wasn't the first item. It was the Transcendence, which means CDR, not something Panitom has access to until he finishes those stacks.
I'm kind of curious, how do you feel? I mean, Transcendence we've seen slotted into a lot of jungle builds lately, so it's not really off-putting.
Yeah.
Do you like the fact that both of these junglers have gone for it first in terms of like power spikes versus something like a Jotuns early?
I mean, you're going Jotuns if you think you want to fight like Transcendence being fully stacked, right? If you want to get the most value out of that, or if it's just an ultimate bot, if you're like the Hunbats, for example. In this case, I think both junglers were like, our late games are sick. There's probably not going to be too much scrapping early. Let's just play more towards that late game and go for some extra damage and just stack it up. It ends up working a little bit better for the Camelot Kings, of course, because they get first blood off it, but I don't think Panitom's that worried. He should be able to just chunk late game as Adaji does. I am a little bit curious about CaptainTwig's build so far, though. Not a damage item. Looks like going for Berserkers or Glad Shield in that second slot. Not something we typically see on the Susano, but maybe fearing he's going to need some extra Fizz Prot against the mostly physical damage on the side of the Oni Warriors.
Especially when you think about the fact that Daji's absolutely going to be the one hunting you down most of the time. Speaking of which, Palau is up. Beat's still down for 30. So if Twig's going to get got, this would be the time to do it. Panitom was thinking he was going to go for maybe a Blink Palau. Doesn't find anything there. One of the things that we've learned over the years, and this is especially important for those of you who maybe don't play Assassins, 1v1ing a late game Daji is not advisable.
No, it's not a fun time.
You're doing your best to just live so you can get away, and I feel like that might be part of what this item is. It's not a I can take the 1v1, win this fight. It's a can I live long enough to run away and do something with the rest of my health bar. Maybe some opportunities in the future. Twig getting aggressive in the jungle. Gonna steal some back camps. Panitom's on the left side of the map. Rom still has beads. Twigs are back up. So this next Panitom, this next Powwow is going to get immune, if not immune by the beads, and there's still a couple ultimates that are going to be helpful for getting rid of that. Work's cut out for the Daji. And Trelly, we were both a little wrong. And I was really wrong, which was that First Blood didn't take super long to get to. And it also didn't seem to open any floodgates. It's been right back to the same level of play. Until now, Gold Fury. Started by the Warriors, half health. And they're going to drop it. And walk away. I thought they were just going to drop it for a moment, see if they could bait genetics in, go for a fight. But no, they scatter to the winds, go to their buffs, and have the full reset.
Yeah, at this point, I'm thinking the Camelot Kings are waiting for Variety to show up. He's level 12. He is dominating lane. Sot can't really do anything at the moment on this Horus. I mean, I watched Variety blink under tower to try and steal blue buff, because Sot's like, oh, I'm just going to pull the blue buff on a tower. There's no way you can go for the steal. Haha, you can't get me. And Variety says, I'm going to blink under your tower to try and steal because you're not fighting. And at this point, that is a big threat. Once again, the Oni Warriors go for their pull. There is a ward here, though. And Jarcorrr is actually backing. He's not even going to go for the snipes. It looks like they're just giving this one up. The Camelot Kings have no one to try and go for. They're going over towards the Pyromancer. And it looks like it's just going to be a trade of objectives.
Panitom, no, he's backing. I was going to say is over there. Maybe could have tried to make a play for the Pyro. It's taking a little longer to burn down for the Kings. But like you said, 1-for-1, objective for objective, Fury for Pyro. And I feel like these trades, they always get the most interesting when it's how does that Runic Bomb get used, right? Because depending on where that Runic Bomb goes for genetics now, that's a Warrior's win. But if that Runic Bomb gets some massive value, or if it's just held onto and suddenly they get to nuke a Phoenix with like 3 of them in 10 minutes, all of a sudden, it's a win for the Kings, even though we didn't know it at the time. Gold is pretty much 400 apart. I mean, about dead even, maybe just barely separated because of that tier 1 that the Warriors just took on left. And so definitely room for this one to just have the lid blown off it at any moment. And it's the junglers, man. I thought we were going to see a little more. Both Transcendences are now complete. You had called it the Glad Shield here for Twig. Maybe gives him some procs, maybe slows him down a little bit. But Panitom hasn't been giving him too much to have to match.
No, Panitom has not gotten as active as I would hope. And again, it's probably because there's not much CC on this squad. If SOT is getting lane pressure, it goes a little bit differently. He can pull beats relatively easy if he can rotate out, but he hasn't been able to do that because Variety owns the right side of the map. And because of that, Panitom says, hey, are there beads down? No, I'm a farm. Pegon forced into his dash very early on, and the beads go down, but it looks like he's not the target here.
Has the Aegis as well if he needs to get out of there. Panitom up onto the Powwow, looking for the targets. Jake is burning, though, and there's not much you can do about it. The hell, walking under the tower is going to have enough, but a great pullback from Twig keeps them engaged. Panitom sniped down and killed off thanks to Variety. He's now trying to run away. Good engage from Pegon. Makes this go 1-for-1. Jarcorrr in an awkward spot. Netrioid wants to take the fight, goes for it.
He hits those.
They're good, and they get the kill. 2-for-1. Let's make it 3 as Twig overstays his welcome. Jake still kicking in this fight, still healing, and still keeping the team alive.
That was insane. That looked like a Camelot Kings win through and through, but it was the return. Pegon flickers in to confirm the kill and gets the pull back onto CaptainTwig. Just overstaying their welcome. There's no way they're going for the Fire Giant. It looks like they've got the HP and they've got the sustain. They're going to try. The Camelot Kings have to step up, right? Or maybe they're not worried about a 15-minute Fire Giant. Genetics is on his way, but it looks like he's not going to step up. Do you think it's a bait?
He definitely sees it. Has to worry about it. Sot's getting low.
This is so risky.
Jake's healing has to work out a lot. They don't have secure in this. They're going to lose Sot in the process. Now, you've got Panitom back. Warriors get the FG, and they get an early sub.
Panitom?
15 minutes, and Panitom is getting work done. Looks for Tingz. Not able to get the kill, though. Variety is peeling for him. They're going to lose their jungler, and it's 2 for the Fire Trelly. It feels like a risky play, and it is.
It is a risky play. You lose Fire Giant on 2. The question now becomes, what do the Camelot Kings get in the meantime, the 15 seconds before Panitom's back up, and what can the Oni Warriors even do with this Fire Giant? And no other team besides the Warriors are making that call, right? They're like, oh, we won the fight. We've got Horus ult. We're kind of near FG, but it's 14 minutes. Maybe we shouldn't go for this. I mean, Sot essentially died 2 Fire Giant. He took so much trying to tank that up. There was really no confirm. It was just, let's go for it. Why not? And, of course, Panitom almost kills BigManTingz, but almost is not going to get you any gold, and it's going to lose you your Fire Giant is what it's going to do. So now the Camelot Kings, I assume, feel pretty confident trying to defend here. Tier 2 towers, this early on, even with FG on your duo lane, is a risky gamble. I don't think the Oni Warriors are going to be able to push. Are going to be able to get as much as they would like off this Fire Giant. But heck, they did it. And it was interesting.
And you know what, man? With the pace the games have been going lately, I'd be surprised they get a tier 1 tower off of this Fire Giant. They got a minute and a half left on the power play. They're going to go for the Oni Fury. Take their namesake, get some powers up. Might be able to start pushing mid. Maybe with a rotation. Sot's kind of hanging out. Pyromancer's up on the right. Kings have the timer for this one. Sot, though, Pegon still here to defend. Jake looping around as well. Warriors steal that one away! And it's just that easy. Well played for them. And a nice little bit of secure. And that forces the Kings to fall back. And Trelly? Look, man, it's a small Fire Giant because it got taken before 15 minutes. But it's gotten them 2 neutral objectives to follow and maybe a tier 1 in mid. And it's finally some pressure on the map.
The question is what else? Because Yark pushed right, so that was tier 1 for tier 1. The Oni Warriors, they don't have much more time to push with this thing, about 37 seconds. I guess just search through the jungle, see if you can find a pick, see if you can pull some beads. Jarcorrr maybe is the target. At this point, it doesn't seem like they're going to do much else, Gore. With a Fire Giant that early, again, your tanks. It's very difficult to tank up a tier 2 tower this early on. As we saw that the fights are not so one-sided that you can just step forward and take a tower for free. The Camelot Kings will defend if they can. A risky Pyromancer pull there by the Kings. I guess they felt they had the better confirm and it actually gets stolen away. But now tier 1 over on right. So I guess you were right. Tier 1 towers. That's it. That's what we're looking for here with this Fire Giant.
I'm honestly still a little surprised they got those.
Yep. I mean, it was just because of the split push, right? Yark is always on the opposite side trying to get some farm, trying to catch up, or at the very least stay neutral here with Net. And the tier 2 over on right. There's no minions just yet, but the Runic Bomb is going to come in clutch, and that tower will drop. There's a wraparound here from Genetics. The Kings want to fight this.
They're going to try
Beautiful
to get
Sunder.
a good angle. Good route as well from Genetics. Great from Variety, but Powwow picked up by Panitom. And it's just the question of whether or not they can get something from this. No pulls off of the Daji. And it's going to be a Horus ult that ends up taking him kind of towards the Kings here. Sot has to play carefully. Pegon, half health. Netrioid even lower and alone right now. Dashes forward. Panitom comes in to help his carry. And the fight is separated, but the Kings have better
so much
health
healing.
bars. Healing from Jake is helping, but Netrioid's not part of that. No one's helping him here. Jake does loop around, pick up the kill he was looking for. Twig goes down. Jarcorrr gets low. Sot just runs in the 1v3 to take the kill and confirm it for the team. Pegon now full health again, gets to chase him down. Burn is good, and even though it looked great for the Kings, it's crumbling beneath their feet. Everything for Netrioid. And it's going to take a while, Trelly. But Variety's going to go down, and lo and behold, look at the timer. It's just around the Fire Giant respawn. Another setup for the Warriors. You have to imagine, if they're going for it at 1450, they're going for it now.
Yep, seems like the pull's happening here. BigManTingz on the opposite side of the map. And again, that fight looked clean for the Camelot Kings. Genetics goes in, it's a massive Sunder, big root, pop his ult. But then the sustain comes in. Awesome Jake just constantly healing up the team, and what looks like a good fight just starts to get worse and worse because the anti-heal just isn't enough. I mean, CaptainTwig, sure, he's got the Brawlers and the Vine Ruin is there, but no Cursed Onk, and that means that Jake is able to keep his whole team healthy. And what looks like a one fight for the Camelot Kings just keeps stalling and stalling, and the health bars just don't go down enough. The Oni Warriors get their second Fire Giant at 20 minutes, which is a little ridiculous to say.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking this one should be looking towards more tier 2 towers. Only one dropped last time because of the Runic Bomb. And the Runic Bombs are not in play at the moment. But that Pyromancer is spawning here shortly. Gold Fury is going to come up. This could be a massive swing in favor of the Warriors if they're able to grab everything that they want. At the while, though, BigManTingz was able to stay alive. He's level 19. I mean, 2 ahead of anyone else on his team and 3 ahead of most on his squad. Meaning he still can do some good damage. He's got that prophetic cloak getting stacked up, so he's hard to kill, as we've seen. Panitom has been able to close gap and get to this Baba, but has not been able to find a kill. And it's the Kings who are near Pyromancer. It's only SOT and Pegon over there now who are going to have to go for a steal, or at least pull it right in front of their faces.
Well, they go for the pull. And then drop immediately, right? They don't recognize, or they don't think they have enough, just the two of them, to withstand it. Genetics is going to pull that. And the Kings are starting it up. SOT prepared to try and steal it. Does go for it, just a little late on the damage. And so isn't going to have that. Meanwhile, the rest of his team got busy on the map and are being proactive. Tier 2 in left, Tier 2 in mid. Taken down. And the Warriors have eliminated the towers from the Kings side of the map. Trelly extended this gold lead. Let's call it 8,000.
And that's going to help out towards Phoenix defense if you're looking towards it. The Oni Warriors were able to back up, spend that gold. Sometimes they've been known to not spend that gold and just continue to push in for the birds, but they're not going to do that. At least grabbing some buffs, but I'm looking at the split. It looks like they're just trying to make sure all waves are pushed up with another 60 seconds to go. I mean, I said it last time, it would be difficult to step in towards a Phoenix, and because the Camelot Kings were able to grab that Runic Bomb, it seems like that's not the play. But out of any team in the league, Gore, this would be the one that would ult in with a Horus ult at 20 minutes to try and take a Phoenix. They do have that kind of mentality, and now they're grouping on the right side of the map. 35 seconds left on the buff. They might not even have it if they decide to ult in, but they're sieging forward, the Camelot Kings. They have to get ready to defend all birds. They don't know which one they could be going to.
I've got to give credit where credit's due. Warriors, nothing if not entertaining in the pace of their games. And that's where they're at right now, Trelly. Pushed up on right. A lot of them hanging out in the right side jungle.
No, they're not going.
But they're not going for it. 5 seconds left on the power play. Maybe they can catch a king fading away, but they are more than likely, and based on the ward coverage I'm seeing, absolutely, just setting up for the next fight, and very specifically this FG. Walking over a couple wards themselves, though, so the Kings know what's up. And it is going to be 45 seconds, reset, FG.
Make no mistake, though. This next Fire Giant, no matter what, Oni Warriors are going in. And they're going to be looking at Phoenixes regardless at this point. All they need is that extra timer, that extra reset of the buff. And then I wouldn't be surprised if they just send it in immediately after, don't even go back to base and spend up some gold. But it still will take some time. Maybe. I think the Camelot Kings are under the impression the Warriors are gone, but they went back to base. They're trying to catch them out here. Surging forward. Panitom's going to grab the speed buff first. The question is, do the Kings go in for this Tier 2 tower? And it looks like they're hiding so far back that the Kings aren't, or the Oni Warriors don't recognize it. Panitom, he's going to spot this out first. There is no fight. Looks like heading over to Fire Giant is the call. It is only variety on that side of the map.
Well, Panitom is in an interesting spot now. 5 Kings that are getting aggressive for the Tier 2. Variety, I should say 4 Kings getting aggressive on the Tier 2 and left. Variety hanging around the FG. No secure, really, for either of these teams. Variety has ult.
Huh.
But he's just going to let this one go. Warriors pick that up. Kings get a Tier 2. And Trelly, considering there were 5 towers a second ago standing for the Warriors, now that it's only 3, they can feel a little better about that. SOT joins Panitom, maybe trying to catch someone on the retreat. Meanwhile,
they're
Netrioid,
so split.
Jake and Pegon are on the right side of the map. You had said it. They're going to go for Phoenixes. Now I'm just curious what the split's going to look like.
I think they're waiting, right? Variety does have a nice gank, but Pegon spots it out. Going to get some good damage over. And CaptainTwig takes a lot. He's dead.
Just gone. As easy as that. No pull from the Powwow. So Panitom's not going to have anything flashy to play off of this one, but now it's 4v5. You walk into the mid Phoenix, you take the mid Phoenix. This Fire Giant's paying off at dividends.
Genetics is gone.
Is just killed off, and then immediate Horus ult over to the right side Phoenix. They're going to get aggressive. Variety stunned out in the back, and he's taking a lot of damage. Good Fearless, but it's not enough. Double kill for Netrioid. 3 kills for the Warriors, and Trelly marching into the Titan room at 25 minutes. The Warriors are looking to take game 1 off of the Kings. Tingz, Jarcorrr gonna have a lot of damage to try and hold this back, but not with the onslaught they are facing. It's game 1, and it's Warriors.
It's so much damage. 25 minutes in. What a pace. Every time I cast a Warriors set, at the end I say, wow, who's playing Smite this quick? No one else.
Them.
The Oni Warriors. The 14-minute Fire Giant was questionable. They only get it on 3. The 20-minute Fire Giant was confirmed. And then this one, they're just going in for the end. CaptainTwig just gets caught out. It seems like he was a little bit too far up. The Camelot Kings, I'm sure 5v5 would have felt a lot stronger underneath those birds trying to defend, but they don't get the chance.
The Warriors missed the memo. Everybody else has got these 40-minute, 35-minute average,
Yep.
40, 45, 50-minute games. Warriors just like, yeah, no, why do that? I don't want to do that. So instead, they just take it. Look at a very early Fire Giant, like you said in a call, that no other team is probably going to be making, even with that advantage. And it just feels so risky. But the risk pays off in game 1. It starts with 1 fire, then 2, then 3. And that's all they were able to get. They maybe could have kept stacking them up if they wanted, but they had it on cooldown, and 25 minutes ends this game. It's 1-0 up for the Warriors. We'll find out if the Kings can bounce back right after this.
Start off our Sunday. It's the Oni Warriors who come out on top in game number 1 up against the Camelot Kings in true Oni Warriors fashion. But one thing you should do is jump back into the SMITE client right now because the mythical market is back. That's right. Make sure that you jump in and see what exclusive deals have been generated for you, the players at home, by jumping into SMITE and going through and taking a gander through the mythical market back now in our client. Very excited to see this come back to our client, see what great skins, what great offers are available to you. Again, specifically catered to you, and every single one of you out there has different ones. I mean, I've logged in before and seen all kinds of different options just for myself, even comparing that to some of my friends out there. So make sure you jump in and see what the mythical market has for you. But Mythical, in game number 1, Oni Warriors, and they start running it down. They run it down early. The sustain so difficult for the Camelot Kings to deal with. Felt like once we started getting past the 15 minutes, the amount of sustain that was coming through for the Oni Warriors in these team fights was exceeding the damage that the Camelot Kings were able to deal to them.
And the Camelot Kings made a clear decision around that point of the game where it's, okay, well, if we can't fight them, we got to do something else on map. Let's go run down a tier 2 tower, or let's try and grab a bit of farm on map. And in doing so, allow the Oni Warriors free reign of the map themselves. A couple of fire giants start to go their way. Things start to get out of control very quickly. And the Oni Warriors very easily fall into their classic win condition, which is we have fire, we're going to press our buttons better, we're going to walk into your tower, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. The Oni Warriors, it's the speed of play which wins the day once more here in game number 1. The Camelot Kings, they may have prepped for it, but at the end of the day, even if you know it's coming, sometimes you just can't stop it from happening. I am loving the brand of SMITE that the Oni Warriors have put together so far this year. It is just so wildly different from what everybody else is doing, and it is so wildly successful as well. I was concerned with this Oni Warriors composition that maybe they'd struggle to actually make use of the burnt beads. I maybe thought it was just going to be Panitom for the most part, burning the beads and then having to wait for his own cooldowns to do it all over again. But instead, anytime one person was ready, they got killed pretty quickly.
Leading the damage charts in the lobby, Pegon 204 on the Merlin. Awesome Jake putting out over 11,000 healing in the short 25-minute game. SOT also putting up about 4K himself, so 15,000 effectively nullifies an entire player from the Camelot Kings, even 2 if you count CaptainTwig and Jarcorrr. Their damage barely adds up to the amount of healing that SOT and Jake were able to provide for that one. So now moving in towards game number 2, Myth. And Camelot Kings, they drafted for a late game style of comp. They couldn't make it to the late game at that point. Couldn't really hold through the early game once we started breaking past that 15 or so minute mark. What changes for the Camelot Kings probably need to come in towards game number 2 to try and stop the Warriors?
Man, J-Mac, if I could figure out those changes, if I knew them, you think I'd be here? I'd be in the booth playing with them, or I'd be Biggie, you know? I mean, figuring out how to beat the Oni Warriors is just a real hard task. Once someone does it and does it consistently, I can tell you how it happened and why, but what needs to change? Press your buttons better, get some solo kills in lane. It's hard to say, man.
Simply just be better. Might just be the answer up against the Oni Warriors at this point. Pixaban's game number 2. Start right back up and start the exact same way that they did in game number 1. Marty and Nox banned away. Hebo is the answer as well for the Oni Warriors. They'll take that away here in game number 2 as well. So what now do the Camelot Kings do to change up their draft? Vamana was an answer for them to try and ban away from the Warriors. You don't necessarily want to give that one away to the Warriors, and they'll likely snap pick it if it's left open, so it does get banned away a second time through. I think maybe notable to also add in there, Myth, that Guan Yu made his way all the way through the draft, got untouched in the picks and bans for game number 1. Maybe could answer back to some of the sustain that the Oni Warriors had for themselves. It's a run back of the exact same bans and the exact same first pick for the Warriors.
So run back the death segment again. I mean, I could break down what Horus brings, but I think everybody knows by now that he's just really good at locking down individual targets, healing, and repositioning the team. I think you're right that the Camelot Kings could look towards a bit more sustain to help out in those late game team fights, and late game with the Oni Warriors is 15 minutes. Late game with every other team is 25 minutes. So maybe that's where you look. I think, if anything, and given my own spin on things, I would likely try and fight the Oni Warriors throughout the early. Feels like the only way to stop them is to meet them at that point. Don't allow them to pull the lead, because the Oni Warriors with the lead are just one of the scariest teams to play up against. Hell's a good start, though. It sustains, going to be the answer for the Camelot Kings. Takes one away from Jake. Maybe does shift this horse over towards support. Could have SOT play just about anything he wants over in the short lane. Otherwise, a very aggressive duo lane now, presumably for the Camelot Kings. The Hell is not necessarily slated for genetics. Could be headed towards BigManTingz in mid. But I think I would probably prefer to see BigManTingz on something with a bit higher hyper carry potential.
Well, with Hell taken away, looks like Horus is going to be making his way over to Jake's hands this time with the Guan Yu selected for the Oni Warriors. Then Netrioid going back to the Izanami for yet another time. One of his best picks so far this phase in the season of the SPL. So now the Camelot Kings, where do they go with the rest of their draft? Last time they prioritized making sure to get their carries. They got the Ram, the Baba Yaga last time, now swapping it up for a Cernunnos in place of Ram. Hell for support, and Serqet that made it all the way through until the second wave of bans last time is the adaptation here for the Kings.
So you've got some anti-heal now to deal with sustain. Serqet ultimate, 100% anti-heal to afflicted targets. Means that you can lock down the one guy and hope that the poison spreads. But you need to have the damage behind it for it to really work out. As of now, CC, I think, primary and at the forefront of the minds of the Camelot Kings. How are we starting this fight? Who's going to do it? Your solo laner can do it. If that is Hell mid, you can draft a support for it. I wouldn't hate an Odin lock-in for the Camelot Kings. The Oni Warriors could struggle up against that pick in particular, or even maybe an Ares if you want to toss Hell towards mid. Can restrict the Horus. We've seen a lot of teams come up with that as a direct answer to Horus or Serqet themselves. So the Camelot Kings, certainly a few avenues available to them, but won't be easy, I don't think. This is an Oni Warriors draft through and through. They love playing the Guan Yu Horus combo, the sustain that affords them, the high pressure that a Horus Izanami lane could have, or even a Guan Yu Izanami lane. I'm not 100% sure where these Warriors are going to line up. I think it comes down to more so the matchup in solo lane, and then SOT can make an informed decision towards the end of the draft phase. The Thoth ban. That's thrown me for a loop. I was not expecting that. That does make me think that it is Hell for mid. Thoth, one of the more annoying matchups for Hell. She doesn't quite have the range to match up against him, and Thoth very good at applying Divine Ruin from a safe distance. But that is surprising, and it's not one I was projecting here. Pegon has played Hell, excuse me, Thoth, but not so often that I would think the Camelot Kings want to dedicate one of their second bans to it.
Not just Thoth, though. Merlin banned by the Camelot Kings, so maybe this Hell could be going over towards mid for BMT. Though the Oni Warriors not fully convinced, they take away Baba Yaga, a pick that BMT has gone to quite a few times so far in this phase of play. One more ban for the Warriors. I wonder if it'll be another mage ban. I was actually just thinking Agni could be an answer. The Oni Warriors, Pegon, he's got a flexible god pool himself. Merlin, Hebo, Tiamat, Morgan has played Cernunnos, but obviously taken away. Chernabog, Discordia also in that mix for Pegon so far, just in this phase alone that he's been able to play. So a lot of options towards him.
Cerberus.
BigManTingz, what will he end up going for himself? With the Martikross banned away, that's pretty much the only main hunter mid aside from Neath that he could go if he wanted to run something else there. Cerberus, I'm not entirely sure where it goes, because I've seen Genetics play this one a few times. I've seen Variety go with it. You maybe have a preference, or is it just kind of a wait until last pick and then maybe we kind of get a more solidified answer?
Yeah, hard to say. I mean, it'll be easier to say once we see all 10 selections, but Cerberus as an answer to the Oni Warriors core 3 already, just having a bit of anti-heal and kit, some initiation, which was one of the concerns that I had for the Camelot Kings draft, is who's starting your fight. It's Cerberus. He's starting your fight, and he's going to start your fight pretty often. Make use of burnt beads from Serqet, or burn some beads for Serqet, have Cern follow up as well, Stygian Torment. Just a very good AoE CC tool to have in some of these late game engagements. But as for where he's going to land, I would guess solo lane. We just see him there more often than not. Tiamat for Pegon, and the Susano lock-in hovered for Panitom out of the jungle. That is a bread and butter Oni Warriors draft. Wouldn't be surprised if they've ran this exact 5 before at some point this year. They've got exactly what they want, which is pressure in just about every single lane. Regardless of where the Horus and Guan Yu land, either one should be able to put out a similar amount of pressure. Tiamat, the only one lacking in early game presence, but with mage items in year 10. Second item, you're online, and it's no longer, okay, well, I need to get my third, fourth luxury item. Where am I going to stack my penetration? No, mages get there, and they get there very quickly. So 10 minutes, I think the timer for the Oni Warriors to start deathballing this time around. The Camelot Kings now have to finish out their own composition. I'd like to see a bit more consistent damage from them, something that could follow up off the CC core. Vulcan does fit that role, but Vulcan is also very easy to jump on throughout the early game. Could be a pressure point for the Camelot Kings. I imagine Panitom will have some words for BigManTingz.
Susano for Panitom, if I'm not mistaken. 100% win rate on the god so far this phase. 5 games played and a 5.3 KDA on this pick. Now for BigManTingz with that Vulcan. Rounding out the draft, so does show that this Hell will be going over likely to the support role. Would be a possibility to see it go over solo. Variety was one of the few Hell solo players whenever she popped up in the meta a little bit last season as well. But based on history of this season, at least, probably more likely to see her in support. Do you hold stock? Because I know that we kind of maybe glance over a little bit with the Horus and the Guan Yu. Do you hold stock in maybe the potential of a Guan Yu support for Jake, or do you think that this is likely going over to SOT and solo?
Yeah, I think Guan Yu could go to support here. I wouldn't hate it. I feel like neither Guan Yu or Horus has a particularly better matchup into Cerberus. And I think you're right to say that there is some flexibility potential between the Hell and Cerberus as opposed to, solo or support between either of the two. Genetics does not strike me as a Hell player. He loves being an initiator, wants to start fights for his team. Hell is not that god. She does not do that for you. So if that's the case, with Variety's history on Hell, I wouldn't be overly surprised to see her in solo. And if that's the case, even then, I don't overtly favor Horus or Guan Yu into the Hell. So there's flexibility for the Oni Warriors and just what they feel like doing, and flexibility from the Camelot Kings as well. Those two can certainly shift around. I think I might want to see Guan Yu support just because it's awesome Jake, and I know what he's capable of, and I feel like Guan Yu at level 5 has the potential to get a little bit more done in lane than a Horus does. The chase out potential, the heavy damage output, very good, and playing through the dual lane is something the Oni Warriors have done consistently, but I'd be lying to you if I had said that I have any inclination about where these drafts are going to land out.
So while we may have question marks on where things land, we at least get a full look at the team compositions. Do you like this composition from the Camelot Kings to try and answer to the Oni Warriors here in Game 2, Myth?
I like the adaptations individually. I think the Serqet is a smart pickup, great at finding picks on map, and good at dealing with the sustain of the Oni Warriors. So if that was one of the major issues in Game 1 that the Camelot Kings have identified, I feel like they've done a fair deal to address sustain. The only issues I have is Hell and Vulcan are very easy to jump on in the early.
We'll have to see if the Camelot Kings can weather the storm and take down the Oni Warriors, or the Oni Warriors going to keep their undefeated streak. Let's jump into game number 2.
Well, that's the question for them here. And a 2-0 would be amazing as well, Trelly. Just to keep their dominance going as well as it can. That being said, me and you walked into this looking, I think we had seen about half the draft. And I think it was even ignoring the draft. We had just said, the Warriors do like losing game 2s.
They do.
Like, if this is where, if they fumble, it seems to be in game 2s as of this year.
Well, to be fair, they don't like it. They just do it. They have said to us, they have said to us, we don't know why we get a little silly in game 2s, but we do.
Sometimes you're feeling a little silly.
Yep, and unfortunately for the Oni Warriors, we're in game 2. I guess fortunately for the Camelot Kings, they have that same leverage. I do like CaptainTwig on the Serqet. I think that it's got a good matchup into Susano. Being able to pull beads very easy early on and then sort of find him in the jungle later on is certainly a possibility here. Variety on the Cerberus once again, which is a pick that he hasn't played in a bit, but has made some massive plays on in times of past. As well as BigManTingz on the Vulcan, a pick that not too many players are going to right now, but still does have incredible burst damage if you can use him correctly. If you can have that big setup, which Serqet and the Cerberus certainly do provide.
When you say not too many players, you mean like no one?
Yes.
Okay.
I saw Fine OK hover the Cerberus. That was pretty cool.
I was thinking the Vulcan.
Oh, the Vulcan. I think Paul played Vulcan, right? That was something.
Oh my God! Wait, am I forgetting a Vulcan game?
I thought so.
No.
Maybe I'm trolling.
You
But
know
at
what?
this point,
Maybe we're all trolling.
maybe. We know one thing for sure. Panitom is not, because he is on Susano. And Susano is one of his best gods. I mean, he just has a fantastic time playing. I already mentioned that the matchup.
Oh my God, you're not right, or you're not wrong. You're right.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I don't like that you were so surprised, but that's okay.
I feel like I should have remembered that better.
You got a lot. You're the stats guy. You have a lot of numbers rolling around in that brain of yours.
Speaking of which, did you know Panitom got 21 kills last week?
See, and you can do that. I didn't. We both learned something here already 1 minute into this game. I think that's great. Dash in here, Netrioid getting aggressed upon, but it looks like Yark is taking more damage.
Yeah, that's the question I think that I have for you based on what the desk was asking, and it's a little bit around the aggressive capabilities of these teams. Mifflin had said, I think 10 minutes was when he saw maybe the potential to get the death ball going, especially now that we can see that duo lane can dish it as good as they receive it on both ends. It feels like it's going to be that mid lane that is somewhat either the linchpin for the King's aggression or the thing that's slowing the Warriors down just a little bit, right? Tiamat, early game, doesn't hit quite as hard as late game. And so it feels like it wants to rest a little bit. Meanwhile, like a Vulcan meatball backfire combo still hits pretty hard.
Oh, yeah.
Super early.
It certainly does, and I think Pegon's going to play a little bit defensively, as you kind of have to on the TMI. You got decent clear, you got decent poke, but it takes a while before you're chunking. Where BigManTingz, he can help out his own farm. With the turret, he can go to mid-camps relatively easy. And that's kind of the benefit of this pick. That turret really does help you out around objectives, and you have that incredible burst you were mentioning. And I think the Camelot Kings are sort of looking towards that later stage of the game to get active. But Panitom is stepping forward as if he wants to invade a blue buff. But I'm wondering how well that's going to go. Sot's here as well, but he's going towards a Transcendent start, so it isn't going to be too tanky, but he's got decent damage. And it looks like they will be able to successfully invade that one. And Sot gets a free blue buff. And he's just going to keep bullying and stops him back because he can, right? And that's just the nature of Guan Yu early on. You're not going to fear too much damage as long as you've got your sustain and you've got health pot, multi-pot, I guess in this case health chalice, multi-pot. So plenty of healing on the side of SOT for this Guan Yu.
Not often do you see a successful invade that's then also still met by the ones doing the invading, or at least Sot in this case, continuing to bully afterward, especially after last game. The tier from Variety kept Sot on his toes for such a long time.
Yep. Did Sot ult the totem? Because I feel like he was going to ult the totem. He doesn't have his ult. Either he didn't put a level in it or he ulted it. And I know that he ended.
He ulted it.
I knew it. Remember when he ulted? He Colossal Fury the totem last time? I'm sure of it. I saw him tweet something about how he's not going to lose any totems.
You saw you had mentioned it. He was third on the list. Like the Warriors were third in totem control. And he's not having any of it.
He just wants to make sure he grabs totem. And now Panitom's like, all right, can you ult Variety? He's like, well, so about my ult. You see that MP5 and increased movement speed you have? Yeah, you think that grows on trees? I had to ult for that, man. And now there's no way Variety goes down unless he leaps in for some reason.
Twig, maybe looking for something more than just an appearance in the lane. Shows up on left, the Serqet, incredibly deadly, especially now at level 5. Still hovering around, but not committing too much.
Ooh, bailed out the ult.
The shield buff is there, and like you said, with ults gone, that's an easy secure for the Kings. Trelly, last game we saw some objectives go down. We were about 400 apart. This game, you're seeing about 700 gold around a first blood bounty without a first blood. And so the Warriors just farming, especially off of these small invades, a little stronger right now.
So far, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some early aggression towards the gold tree. That it was the Warriors who were just pulling it back and forth. They had the sustain. They were able to do so just to sort of check the response time of the Camelot Kings. But with a Vulcan, you always have to fear that massive burst. There's nothing that's going to be outbursting a Vulcan ult this game towards an objective, so you always have to be fearing where BigManTingz is. Does he have beads? Can we CC him? That sort of thing. So maybe when you're trying to pull a gold fury, I think the call would then become, hey, can anyone get to that guy? Can we pull his beads, poke him out before we pull this objective so we don't have to worry about the Earthshaker? It is just, it's from such a long distance. You can be so safe, and as long as you're able to time it correctly, it can be deadly. You can always backstep it, of course, and just say, hey, we hear it, we're going to back up, drop the objective, come back. But CaptainTwig is going over towards, and the stun is going to be enough. This ult should finish it. SOT gets credit. It was the instant Horus, CaptainTwig. Unfortunate, just gets stunned into death.
Look, if Sot's using his ult, it's either for the totem or for a kill. Nothing less than that, right? He's going to get something.
He's not retreating, ever.
And it's going to be massive. He actually even starts the Transcendence, so maybe more damage coming from the Guan Yu than you would expect otherwise. And that gets a lot of stacks for him. 1 and 0. First blood goes to the Warriors. And Shelly, this is a team that, as a whole, it has just been very difficult to kind of figure out the pace of their game for everybody.
Yep. For let's see, what teams have lost to the Warriors? Oh, all of them. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And some of it's, some of it's not even pace. You know they're going to play aggressive, but you also know they're just going to make some ridiculous calls. I mean, we hit pause in game 1.
Yeah.
14, let's say 30. Mm-hmm. And you tell anybody at that moment that in 30 seconds there's going to be a fire giant on one of these teams, they're going to think you're just absolutely
nuts.
Yeah, insane. Like there's nothing else you say after that is going to be taken seriously. And then you play the video and they've got egg on their face. Maybe the Kings trying to step up and match the pace of the Warriors. That's something that we had heard from them they're capable of doing, playing that faster game. We've always seen them be the methodical, the farmers, the ones that are going to just, essentially choke you to death with oppression around the map. But so far, feels like they haven't gotten too active. This is very similar to the last game. We do have at least a little more on the board, but the jungler's playing a little slower. That level lead, specifically for Panitom, maybe forcing Twig to rethink where his aggression goes.
Yep, and that's the thing. The wraparound from Panitom there. He didn't just go normally towards dual lane. It seemed like he was baiting him to CaptainTwig to say, hey, I'm gonna use my teammates as bait. Hopefully the Serqet goes in, and then they're not going to know I'm here, so I can wrap around and go for a return gank, but Twig was onto him. They have plenty of vision, so much ward coverage on the left side of the map. There's just really no way to sneak into this duo lane without getting spotted out by some form of ward coverage. But the shield buff is going to go the way of the Camelot Kings, because honestly, we've seen Netrioid and Awesome Jake underneath this tower for the majority of the early game. CaptainTwig is going to go in. Maybe didn't realize that there was damage here, but Panitom doesn't beads. Why did he eat that?
Pulled back, almost gets out of the polymorph in time
He didn't have him. His beads were almost up. He didn't have
10
them.
seconds left.
Yeah.
And that's just good timing on Twig. Great taunt. And good ward coverage as well. There's not many places you could have walked on this side of the map if you're Panitom and not been spotted out. So just great awareness altogether from the Kings.
He just upgraded his beads. Panitom said, that's the last time that I die within 10 seconds of my beads coming up. I'm going to make sure that upgrade goes down. I saw the pie chart. It was almost on the tick there, and I thought the beads were up. They weren't. Beautiful gank there. You call it out. The ward coverage is insane. CaptainTwig said, hey, we have the beads down from this Susano. At some point, he's going to step on one of these wards, and when he does, I'm going to need follow-up. I thought it was an ambush that the Oni Warriors were setting. It seemed like CaptainTwig didn't know Pegon was there, but he had the follow-up, and they're able to get a return kill. So now, this Serqet, after dying for first blood, is able to pick up a kill of their own. But once again, CaptainTwig not going into that damage. Usually it's the Stone of Binding in this slot for the Serqet jungles, but going for the Glad Shield. Looks like CaptainTwig's really been favoring this physical defense as opposed to the extra pen and the extra HP that Stone of Binding provides.
And admittedly, still a very physical-heavy team on the other side. In fact, it might work out here. Sot has to... Oh, gets a great stun onto Twig under the tower. Gets the turnaround.
He can't keep getting away with it.
In a row. Just do not gank this man. Don't go over to his lane. Don't fight him under his tower. He will kill you.
He can't keep getting away with it, Gore. How does Sot make these clutch plays? CaptainTwig, you don't have beads. You can't go underneath the tower when the cavalry charge is still there. Just a beautiful play, and that is the benefit of the Transcendence start, by the way. He was chunking. I don't think CaptainTwig recognized how much damage was coming his way. Sot, yeah, I agree. Don't gank Sot. You're gonna end up in a montage. It's just not worth it.
At this point, That montage is going to be on Twitter. Genetics, no mana to
Vulcan
work with. Stunned out. Vulcan ult goes big on Netrioid. The damage is there, but the invisibility is a little bit better. He gets out of there. Good healing from Jake keeps him going. Panitom trading it out 1-for-1 support for jungle. But now the cavalry is here, and it's in Pegon, who they find a kill. Twig goes down, the damage is up, and with some good body blocks, they have to get this one. Jarcorrr so low, knockup's good onto Ting, stun is there, Pegon goes in deep, but isn't able to find it. Charging some abilities, drops the Minotaur, and finds one. Netrioid still too low.
No one can kill Tings.
Tings is gonna get away with his variety, might even be able to force something to happen. Pegon's low. Jake tries to heal as much as he can, but there's just so much against him. And they might even turn more around. Yep, Jake goes down to the tower. Double kill for the solo laner. And what felt like a really, really great engagement for the Warriors, Trelly, just balances out.
Yep, it was a beautiful ult from BigManTingz. I don't think the rotation was recognized as well as... I can't believe Pegon decided to jump in. BigManTingz lives on 1 HP. And the hero of that play, of course, Variety, making the rotation over. Didn't even have teleport. He just walked and said, hey, you guys are scrapping? Don't worry, I'll help out.
And they get the last few kills there. And that opens up the Fury pretty easily. Pyromancer's not even on the board yet. So Gold Fury to the Kings after a couple of clean kills. Probably still trailing in gold, but they've definitely taken a massive chunk from what the Warriors have been able to pick up so far. Pyromancer seems to be the grouping for the Warriors. Playing it cautiously. Twigs here. Has vision on it, has ult as
Sot's
well.
got ult,
There's stun. There's the ult from the Vulcan, but they drop the Pyromancer and they kill the jungler. Now Variety steps up. Netrioid gets so low, gets stunned out. What a great play from Variety to just run it down at him, forces him to fall back. Pyromancer picked up one more time by the Warriors. Third time should be the charm here.
Wow.
But it comes at a cost for both squads. Variety getting aggressive. Variety just does so much damage, and he's looking to kill off Panitom with a little bit of help. You gotta stop the Cerberus. He is taking a bite out of the Warriors and not stopping. Chasing down Pegon, finally starts to fall back. Maybe he's eating a little bit too much damage here for Genetics. Sot dashes forward. Trelly, every moment I think we're finally gonna be reaching an equilibrium of peace. Sot hops on his horse and decides to go back in. Looks for the stun, holds on to the ult just long enough. Needs the
body blocks.
Good body blocks from Variety. Sot has to play it carefully. Dash should be coming
More body blocks.
And now he has to find it. Can't find the reach, can't get the kill.
Wow.
It's 6-6 on the board. The gold still favoring the Warriors ever so slightly.
This is the game of what solo laner can carry harder. I mean,
they're both 3-0.
Let me dial it back. CaptainTwig steps up to try and fend a Pyromancer. Sot immediately cavalry charge, instant cancel. They CC chain off of the dark portal from Netrioid. Twig's dead. Then Variety says, hey, that Izanami is kind of weak tanking the Pyromancer. What if I stun her in the pit and she gets hit by all of the damage? Variety comes massive, is able to get the kill onto Netrioid and Panitom, and then the chase down ensues. Sot would have been able to kill Genetics if it wasn't for all of those body blocks. The reason Sot even went onto the horse was because of the leap from Cerberus to get those body blocks. It is the battle of Guan versus Cerberus, and the rest of the team is just there. Panitom, 1-3. CaptainTwig, 1-4. I mean, these junglers are falling behind, but it's just the battle between the Guan and the Cerb. Ooh, that one hurts. Losing the blue buff right in front of your eyes. I just want to be. I just can't wait till the solo laners rotate again. It's gonna be sparks flying for sure.
And honestly, it all starts on that gank, right?
Yep.
I mean, just that one kill from Sot under tower goes so incredibly well for him. Finally, they give us a little bit of a break. I almost don't know, I don't want to talk about anything because it feels like at any moment, especially with 4 Warriors on the right-hand side of the map, any moment, something could happen. They were making a play for a Fire Giant this time last game. But no, it is going to be truly, that briefest of breaks. Tier 1 towers have fallen, one on left for the Warriors and then one on right for the Kings. Variety technically behind Sot here. But it is soon to be a 2v1 if Twig gets the gank he wants. That being said, we've seen what happens on ganks like this.
If there was no tower,
maybe you just ignore the right-hand side of the map, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself. Don't gank Sot. I tend to agree. Not like Panitom could gank Variety, though. 3-0. Looking very tanky there on the Cerberus. Has the Shield of Regrowth, so we'll be able to zoom away if he jumps on some minions, that sort of thing. It is not easy to fight anywhere near these solo laners at the moment. I don't envy the position of the carries. Oh my gosh, Genetic. Speaking of tanky, not the hell. Pretty much everyone else but the hell at this point. Genetic just gets absolutely destroyed by the Primordial Onslaught. And Oni Fury's up, but Thoth's on the wrong side of the map. The Camelot Kings, they're starting to set up for it. At the very least, getting some ward coverage down, and they're going to start the pull.
Don't care about numbers advantage, just care about the fact that the Variety is here. Therefore, this could be a bad fight. Kings burn that Fury down and secure it, no problem. But Jake's going to go in with the team. Thoth's made his rotation, and now he's looking for the carries. It's separation. Twig way off to one side. No one chasing him down because the Serqet too mobile. They zone out. The rest of the Kings, that tier 1 tower, doing enough to keep them safe. Trelly, I'm having a flashback. There's a fight almost like that one that led to a Fire Giant last time around. The big difference, no one falls. Kings maybe even able to get aggressive. Pyromancer's up, but Warriors can't even aggress onto it themselves. They're going to have to watch as the Kings step up to it. Ults were used in their rotation. Primal, half health. Jake goes around the back, Sot's looking for something. Warriors take the Pyro, and they need to find a little more, or at least get out of there. No, Sot burned and killed, and then pulled in is Jake. Great ult from Tingz, great ult from Variety, and they pick up 2 in the process, and now it is deja vu, but it's the Kings stepping up to the Fire Giant 17 minutes in.
And this is all just the Oni Warriors overstepping their bounds there. You could tell when Sot went into the cavalry charge under that original tower, Netrioid called it off. He said, hey, I'm level 14. I don't have Kins online. I need to go farm. And the Izanami goes left. Where the Camelot Kings go? Oh, to the Pyromancer. It was a 4v5. Sot goes in. Sure, you end up stealing the Pyromancer. That's all well and good. But you give a shutdown as well as a Fire Giant because you don't have your ADC there. Netrioid needed the farm, and he did not rotate. Because of that, numbers go in favor of the Camelot Kings. They get a shutdown. They get a Pyro. They get a Runic Bomb. Or I guess they didn't get the Runic Bomb because Sot stole it away, but they get the Fire Giant after. And that's going to be a massive swing in favor of the Camelot Kings. And it looks like gold relatively even at this point. And once these pushes start coming through, unless the Oni Warriors can defend at tier 2s, the Camelot Kings are going to be looking a lot stronger in a couple minutes.
I think it says something, though. They've got 3 towers that are left standing, 4 on the other side. Well, the tier 2 already taken by the Kings. Phoenix exposed, but I think it says something that the gold is as even as it is, right? Maybe the opportunity, not even maybe, should be the opportunity, 2 minutes of the power play for the Kings to get aggressive. We haven't even looked at the builds in a long time, right? Aggressive plays from a lot of these teams, and you had mentioned it earlier, the 1 and 4 was Twig, now 2, 4, and 3 has slotted in a few more items that I think are, I want to say, uncommon in the jungle onto this build. And he's been looking pretty good because of it. Pegon actually takes a lot of poke there. And Charlie, you had called it probably not defending this tier 1 in mid.
Nope. Netroid's still split pushing right. He's going to get as much farm as he can. Again, before that fight, he's been able to even up, but before that fight, he didn't even have Kins finished up. Like, this Izanami was not a factor. And he said, hey, Yark is doing too much. I need to get some farm online. I'm a split push right. Grab a tier 2. While the rest of the Oni Warriors actually defending. They might want to go in here. Sot's on the cavalry charge.
And immediately finds a stun onto Genetics. Might not be the target they want, though. Pull in from Variety, and Jake bursted down. Pegon Polymorph doesn't have anything to do. Leap over the wall, but he's followed by the Cerberus. Tries to get some damage out, but Cerberus just does not care. Variety on this pick, 4-0 and 4, has been ignoring anything thrown his way. And you called it. It has been a tale of the solo laners. Good play from Tingz has really made it easy for the Kings as well. And that's going to be a leap in from Twig. Grabs Sot, forces beats. Now they're under the Titan 5 strong. And a 5-on-3. Phoenix gone in mid. Kings are going to take that as a win. 30 seconds left on the power play. And they're going to pull the reins back a little bit. Step out of the base. Maybe go for this Fury.
Yeah, and I love the play from Netrioid, by the way. Split push, go for the tier 2. I love the play from the Oni Warriors. Sit under tier 2, defend 4v5. But at some point, Gore, the call switched from let's defend this tier 2 to why are we not going in? And it looks like it's not going to stop anytime soon. CaptainTwig getting chased down here. Gonna need a little bit more damage to finish this one, and the Typhoon knocks it down. And This is what I'm talking about. They're not defending Gore. They are sieging forward. The Oni Warriors are pushing as a squad. I mean, the Fire Giant's gone, I suppose. The Camelot Kings have no choice. They have to go back to try and defend their bird, and here comes the Horus ult.
They're stepping in. Do they have what it takes? Netrioid's lacking behind. There's a good ult, but off the mark from Tings. And Trelly, honestly, with the way that cooldown works, that actually might be a big win for the Warriors, even though they don't get the Phoenix, because that ult finally being offline means they can step up and feel confident around some of these objectives.
Pegon is getting chased down here by Yark. Doesn't get the cripple. He will be able to just walk out, but they're not done. The Oni Warriors still want blood.
They're fighting. Variety doesn't care. Pyromancer is getting low. Warriors secure it. But they got to get out of here. This is where things have gone wrong for them in the past. Jake gets a good dash over towards Sot. And he might end up being the sacrificial lamb. He's low health, turns as well, not just running away, thanks to Sot, who's able to get over the wall and have the full-on retreat. Unable to pick up the runic bomb were the Warriors.
Fire, though.
And Fire should be an easy start, maybe an easy grab for the Kings.
And they're gone, yeah. No, the Oni Warriors cannot walk up. Over-aggression, time and time again. It's fun to watch, but it just doesn't seem like the right call in these moments. They were able to get the pick on and CaptainTwig. But Horus ulting in, it seemed to me that they were calling the bluff. They were saying, hey, the Camelot Kings won't think we're crazy enough to go for Phoenix, so let's just do it and hope they don't show up. Of course, the Camelot Kings are there, so they have to back up. Now, the Oni Warriors, if you want to defend your Phoenix, you need to channel your backs this second, and Panitom is still doing a purple buff. He might be a little tardy to the party, but it looks like the Camelot Kings aren't going to walk in just yet.
No one so far has been able to touch Variety's health bar.
Nope. He is uncontested.
That is maybe the change that needs to happen more than anything. They've chunked down genetics. They've done what they can. That's where I have my eyes. Looking at Netrioid's build as well. One that, in theory, should be able to do it. He just has to get the damage there, and he has to be able to do it safely. Unfortunately for Netrioid, the death that he has is because of Variety, and the other times he's been forced to retreat, you'll never guess it, because of Variety, who's also leading the way for the Kings. Right side Phoenix is the target. 2 minutes left on the power play with the buff around their belt. Difficult to walk in. Good chunk of damage from Pegon. Makes the solo laner second guess himself. CaptainTwig hanging around the mid Phoenix. Looking for an opportunity. Blink is up. Beats coming up in 5. You have to imagine that'll be when Twig maybe hits the go button. Variety goes forward. Variety's going to force something out of this. Sot gets pulled in. The Horus ult forward. Jake is leading the way with his team. Panitom's there. Good disengage from the Warriors. Dodges out Tings' ult, but it's only so much. They lose Jake. Jolly, they're holding on to the Phoenix. Low health bar for Variety. It's not a kill, but it's a TKO. He still has teleport. It's just going to be a reset.
It should be 2 birds here. The Camelot Kings should be able to grab mid for free and right lane, unless some good damage comes from Pegon. That was a beautiful stun. Variety, once again, just hard carries the team fight, forcing Netrioid back. Awesome Jake has to ult in to try and peel for his team. And there you go. 2 Phoenixes. And the Camelot Kings are smart enough to know when the retreat has to come. They're going to back up with their win. The Oni Warriors, I mean, they've been finding decent success. They've been looking at good damage. They've been finding that poke, but it's the over chase. They don't have to back up. Once you defend your Phoenix into a Fire Giant, that's the win. You don't have to leave your bird to try and chase them. You don't have to use the cavalry charge or the Horus ultimate to try and run them down. Just say, hey, we defended. Our mid Phoenix is going to spawn soon. We can play for Fire Giant next time. But because they lose 2 Phoenixes now, I would say next Fire Giant is going to go down relatively free. It is so difficult to try and defend when you're clearing 2 waves of fire minions and the FG is so far away from mid lane. It's just a difficult rope to try and walk here. As Awesome Jake steps up and loses his bubble. Variety has not missed, by the way. If you were curious, those stuns are going to keep coming because he is on point right now.
And I think it needs to be said, one of the hardest stuns to hit, I think, in the game.
Yeah, you got to hit all 3.
It is, it's showcased to you on the targeter, but actually enabling that with like the speed of the what is it, spit, I guess?
The projectile, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not a simple ult. Variety has been on point every time. Max length.
I believe it's paralyzing spit.
You know what? That would make sense.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot. He's got ghastly breath, paralyzing spit. If we're learning anything, so Cerberus needs to go to the vet. They need to really take a look at those teeth, man.
Well, he has multiple sets of teeth.
Yeah, that's really where the problem is.
Is it one Cerberus or multiple Cerberi? He's got 3 heads. I don't know. You tell me.
Man, oh my god.
Or it could be Cerberus's. I don't know.
Well, like, so he's Hades' dog. Do
Yeah.
you think, like, Hades just, like, whistles and, like, because you have to imagine it's 3 independent brains sharing a body.
Well,
We're going to talk about this after this game.
Yeah,
we're going to get into that. 4 kills
get
down.
To it. We covered the time between Fire Giant spawning when the fight will ensue. I was telling you about defending Phoenix, and it looks like the Oni Warriors are half-stepping up while Panitom pushes out mid. They've got Pegon's Lizards pushing the wave as well, and Fire Giant about 60%.
Variety just eats the damage, immediately finds Netrioid. He keeps doing this. Someone's got to save the carry, or Netrioid needs to find a different spot to stand. There's nowhere on the map, it feels like. That is safe from him getting hit. He's going to fall back. Devil's Gauntlets is full, so he should be able to heal up and get himself topped off. Has some healers beside him. Twig, the target of aggression from the Warriors. Not going to be able to find too much. Tingz, got to give him the shout-out. 3rd on the damage charts right now, which doesn't sound as impressive as it really is. 18,000, going to give him the extra 4. And he's only falling behind Variety, who is bullying damn near everybody on the other team. And, of course, Pegon, who, for a majority of this, is finding some really good shots. It's just turning that into openings, Trelly.
Yep. I mean, the Tiamat's got great poke. The kill finish, the burst damage, unfortunately, hasn't been there. That's Panitom's job, and he hasn't been able to find it. But the Camelot Kings, I love the way they played that. They started the siege, they started the pull, they didn't like it, they back off. They said, hey, these fire waves are going to have to push up eventually, and when they do, that's when we'll go for our pull. But look at the Phoenix respawn timers.
Yeah.
They're going to be up shortly. I would say, what, those are the last wave of fire minions coming through?
Yep.
If the Oni Warriors can hold out and clear before this FG goes down, they'll be looking good. But the Camelot Kings know that, and they're pressuring.
Pressure's on. Fire Giant's getting incredibly low. It should be a secure Kings. Able to get that thanks to Tingz. Now it's Variety leaping in again. But finally he gets low, and finally someone takes him down. They go in, Panitom deep to the back line looking for the kill. On to Tingz, leading the way as Jake Sott finds him, but it's going to cost him 2 in the process. Health bars are getting low. Health is necessary. Netrioid's damage has to go big, but they can't keep the carry alive. It's a triple kill for Jarcorrr. Last man standing for Sott and Fire Minions. Pushing it on right. Fire Giant around their belts, and Sott taunted in. Sott about to die to Twig, and the Kings looking to push us to 3.
And they certainly will. The Fire Minions are going to grab those birds, and the Camelot Kings march forward. Once again, that fight looked clean. When I saw Variety go down, I was like, oh boy, the Kings dropped it, but they didn't. They had the peel, they had the DPS, and that Titan's going to drop down. 2 relatively quick game score, 28 minutes for this one. We got ourselves a game 3.
And the Kings answered a question. Can you match the pace of the Warriors? Can anyone match the pace of the Warriors? Yes. This time they were able to. A lot of moments in that one, Petrelli. I think a lot of that game, you can really try. And honestly, even the end, because they finally kill Variety. But how does that fight start?
You have to use so much to kill Variety. And I think that might be the issue, right? Variety does pull both relics off of net. He's able to find some good damage on the Pegon, and then they're like, we gotta kill this Cerberus, right? We use so much, the Typhoon finally comes through and kills him. But when you use all of your damage to kill a Cerberus, Jarcorrr is free casting, and that becomes an issue.
This has been a set I've been looking forward to for weeks at this point. It's only week 4 of the phase, so really since week 1, this one has captured my attention, and it is standing up to that test. It's going to be game 3. One of these 2 teams will maybe get to cement themselves and declare themselves the best in SMITE. We'll find out who that is right after this.
Camelot Kings versus the Oni Warriors. The Warriors, still undefeated in the Pro League, now face off again against the world champions, the Camelot Kings. Can the Kings bounce back from their recent loss and take it to the Oni Warriors? All that and more this Sunday. Tune in! Tune in! Do it! Do it!
That's right, our match of the week here on the start of Sunday, and it's going the full distance. Game number 2 to the Camelot Kings, and just as quick a pacing as game number 1. And Mifflin, this one really felt like the Camelot Kings had that answer to the sustain, but more than anything, felt like they matched the style and pacing of the Oni Warriors. You talk about getting active early, making proactive plays. Variety's over in the duo lane 10 minutes into the game, finding a double kill and really getting active. It felt like so many resources and so many of these team fights were expended to try and take down Variety, but all the way up until the very last team fight, the man went undying.
Yeah, I mean, Variety, this is a phenomenal performance from him. Look, the Camelot Kings, it takes a concentrated effort from all 5 members to beat the Oni Warriors, but that doesn't mean all 5 members put out the same amount of output, right? This one is a Variety show. Loved every second from him. I thought it was going to be a quiet performance from Variety, considering the start in his lane. CaptainTwig rotates over. SOT gets a free kill, and I thought that was it. I was thinking to myself, okay, well, now Variety has to AFK because he's been handed a deficit in his lane. Simply not the case. Decided to leave and make things happen elsewhere. Adaptations for the Camelot Kings, not only in picks, but also in play on field. I think need to be shouted out. Of course, the anti-heal composition into the sustained draft of the Oni Warriors, super smart, but that alone is not enough to net you a win. I think it's the expedited pace that also catches the Oni Warriors unawares. The Oni Warriors have been given over a lot of sets so far this year where they're the only team playing at that hyper speed, run it down, grab an objective, then look for a fight afterward. The Camelot Kings brought it here in game number 2. And that adaptability is going to make it scary for the Oni Warriors having to make adjustments now going into game number 3. And usually it's the other way around where it's game 2, the Oni Warriors, you know, no stranger to game 3, but it's usually a drop on their part. This time it's the Camelot Kings who dictate pace, absolutely control the game, and the Oni Warriors will be the ones searching for an answer.
And I think that does come up to be maybe the key that you point out there is no other team has been willing to be as aggressive early against the Oni Warriors as the Camelot Kings did here in game number 2. So maybe caught off guard that there was another team that could match their pacing, or in this case, best their pacing. Whereas a lot of teams, the answer has been whenever they do find a win against the Oni Warriors, it's usually drawn out 35, 40 minutes, getting to where everybody's full build, full scaling at that point when either the Warriors composition falls off or the other compositions come online. So maybe now, for the Oni Warriors, Mifflin, maybe trying to change up the momentum of the game. Do you think that maybe something in the draft can be adjusted for the Oni Warriors to try and maybe reclaim that pacing, something that they can find maybe pressure in more lanes than just the solo lane or just doing? Because if we look at solo lane, SOT did fine. Too many ganks came his way. He was able to throw at every single one of them, found a couple of kills early game, but it felt like everywhere else on the map was just being controlled by the Kings.
Yeah. When you look at the composition from the Oni Warriors, it's not as if they had drafted low pressure. So I think losing out on pressure, likely a bit of play on field here from the Warriors that cost them. Maybe, if anything, I'm looking at Panitom Susano there. Did not love the output from him. Could have potentially gone towards something a bit more consistent. Otherwise, I don't think there's a clear fix, right? We need X, Y, or Z to absolutely decimate the Camelot Kings. I don't think that's going to be the simple answer. If anything, we could see the Oni Warriors stray away from the sustained composition, maybe more of a blitzkrieg style, something that can get through the objectives a little bit faster. That could be it. Catch the Camelot Kings unaware. The Oni Warriors have done this a few times, like a 5-minute Gold Fury, just absolutely breaking the ankles of their enemies, and compositions need to be built around that. You need the confirmation, you need the burn potential. So could be that the Oni Warriors try and pick up pace around objectives, but as for actual fight in lane and the ability to stand their ground, I don't think the Oni Warriors were lacking for that in draft in game 1, 2, and likely won't be in game 3 if the history of their draft so far this year are any indicator.
You think that maybe new bans can arise here in game number 3, Miff? We've been seeing a lot of the Marty, the Hebo's been banned away by the Warriors. You think maybe Hell could maybe be in that question mark, at least? If you're not going to first pick it, maybe take it away, because now the Kings, with a win in game number 2 on the Hell, Genetics showing that he is able to play this pick. You think that's one maybe Warriors prioritize either higher or maybe even throw in a ban column?
Yeah, I wonder if the Oni Warriors did want to ban Hell. I'm not certain that they do, but if they did want to, who are they going to drop off their own bans, right? Because it's been very strong. You want to get rid of the Marty. It's pretty likely that you're going to want to get rid of the Vamana here as well. If you're vying to get rid of Hell, that likely will leave Horus open. Oni Warriors in first pick have been likely to go towards that themselves, but if that's the case, then you have to worry about the Camelot Kings now adjusting their own bans in response. And I think that plays into the point that Biggie had made at the top of the set, where it feels like there are 8 picks that you kind of need to address before you get towards those next up selections. Would I ban Hell? I don't think so. I think the Serqet adaptation a little bit smarter. A lot of those kills for the Camelot Kings were off the back of Serqet's ultimate. Grab that one target, jump on them, deal with them, and then a disengage. A lot of the early game skirmishes for the Kings were just 1-for-0s. And all facilitated by that Serqet. But it's the Hell banned by the Camelot Kings. That surprised me. Wow. I thought, if anything, they'd leave it available, try and grab it maybe within the top 2 selection. Maybe they're concerned the Oni Warriors would have taken it first for themselves and instead let the Horus through.
So games 1 and 2, the bans were Artikros, Hebo, and Yemoja for the Oni Warriors. Now changing that out and adding in the Serqet in place of that Hebo or Yemoja. It's been Nox, Vamana, and Fenrir from the Camelot Kings. So I wonder what this Hell is replacing for the bans. And now throwing Horus in there. So Hebo and Yemoja both open. Vamana or Fenrir as well. will be available to these two teams. Vamana has been a snap pick for a lot of teams whenever he is left open for that first pick selection. SOT, 100% win rate on the 5 games he's been able to play it so far. So I wonder if the Camelot Kings will leave that one open, maybe go for a different ban. With the Yemoja being taken away and that being a pick that Genetics does love going towards, imagine if the Vamana is left open, Yemoja may be at least an immediate answer back for the Camelot Kings to try and deal with it. A lot up on the table for these two teams, and seeing that they've strayed away aside from the Nox and the Marty, have now kept those two but changed the entire back four potentially. Really just shows the adaptations that have to get made on the game-to-game basis. Fender is taken away, so that leaves Hebo, Yemoja, Vamana all up for grabs for the Oni Warriors, and they'll take the Vamana as the first pick.
And generally that Vamana is slated for SOT out of the solo lane. Loves what that pick can do with a lead. He'll move in towards Hastened within that last slot and just be an absolute menace in the back line from behind. You can just kind of dedicate yourself towards defense. So Vamana, very strong right now. Incredibly difficult to deal with. The only way to stop him is to kill him, and it's not easy to kill him, right? With the CC immunity inherent to the kit, thanks to Colossal Fury. Feels like he's going to have points in this game where he's going to jump on your back line, and there's just not a great answer to it, barring dive yourself and try and find more value in the enemy back line. What's the response from the Camelot Kings? Could be just a straight up Yemoja Hebo here. Would be very strong. We've seen Twig on the Hebo a fair few times throughout the last couple of years. Hyper scaling mage in the late game. Comes online pretty quickly as well with the year 10 changes to itemizations for magical picks. Instead, it's the Rom first up. Rom's been prioritized. It's not surprising that the Camelot Kings have taken a Rom for themselves. We know Jarcorrr loves this pick, but maybe a bit surprising at where he was selected, considering there are still a few value hunters available. This would leave the Oni Warriors now in a position where they could just take the Yemoja for themselves.
Yemoja, Izanami could just be the next two. Izanami's been one that Netrioid loves to go towards, and you throw those two in a lane together. All but guaranteed pressure at that point. So where do the Oni Warriors go for these next two? With the Camelot Kings, they're responsible. What would that end up being? As mentioned, CaptainTwig on the Hebo, 100% win rate so far on that selection for himself, but it's not going to be the Yemoja at all. At least not now for the Oni Warriors, though. Don't fully see an Aphrodite going over towards Pegon in mid. Doesn't really feel like that's... Not going to say it's not in his wheelhouse, but doesn't really feel like a Pegon kind of pick. So Cernunnos for the Oni Warriors. Dual lane likely now rounded out for the Warriors. Surprising to you at all, Mifflin, that Aphrodite is picked over the Yemoja, considering what we saw in yesterday's set. Anytime it's Afro versus Yemoja, the Yemoja was the one winning out.
Yeah, I mean, not surprised that Jake wants to play the Afro, and you won't catch me questioning Jake's Afro, as he is single-handedly carrying the win column of Aphrodite in the SPL right now. But I really thought it was going to be Yemoja more so to take it away from Genetics. Jake is very capable of playing both of these picks. I love Jake's Afro. I love Jake's Yemoja. I just thought, if anything, haven't seen a whole lot of Aphrodite from Genetics, have seen enough Yemoja from Genetics that I'd argue it's something you want to take away from him every single time. But the Oni Warriors stick to their own guns and want to play their own game. An aggressive duo lane locked in already with the Current and the Aphrodite together. There's a lot of kill potential early on. Something we don't talk about super often with Aphrodite is the amount of power she affords her ally that she's connected to. Kiss an enemy with a stun, and your ally is, of course, going to do additional damage. Current one that could really leverage that throughout the early, maybe boosting that burst just enough to make that laning phase interesting up against the sustain draft on both sides now, with Yemoja locked in for Genetics and the Camelot Kings. I like the draft so far for both of these teams. You get a better idea of how the Camelot Kings teamfight's going to play out from the 3 selected already, whereas the Oni Warriors, I would like to see what their damage output is going to look like a little bit more so before I make any broad claims. That Merlin lock-in does confirm that Hebo is headed for the jungle. BigManTingz is going to be piloting the Merlin. It's a scary backline now for the Camelot Kings, but maybe a little bit CC light for my liking. Yemoja, of course, plenty of CC on her own, and the wall is going to force a Phantom Shell more than likely. But I want to see just one more, even single target bit of CC from the Camelot Kings, just so you're not burning through the resources of the Oni Warriors too slowly. And it's not as if the Oni Warriors are only going to have beads, only going to have Aegis. With Aphrodite on your side, that's a beads Aegis built in a kit on a very low cooldown as well, meaning that it's going to be even more difficult for the Camelot Kings to actually hit pay dirt on their initiation.
Shall we get to it then?
Well, Thoth banned away in game number 2, now picked up for Pegon in game 3. And a Susano one more time for Panitom. So now you got your carry to link to this Aphrodite in the Susano. You can even link it to the Cern or the Thoth if need be late game. And Camelot Kings, you're asking for a little bit of extra CC. Well, how about a King Arthur potentially for variety? Still hovering it, hasn't locked it in, so we'll wait until we do get the official lock, at least on this solo lane selection. See what variety's going to be taking up against the Vamana. Will be the Guan Yu, so still somewhat single target. If you can find a few people with the stun, sure, but more often than not, you do see at least single-man stuns on there. Prot Shred, slows, a lot of sustain coming from the Camelot Kings. So does this now round out that composition that you were wanting for the Kings? You got the heavy CC in the emoji. You got a little bit more for Guan Yu now.
I would have liked non-ultimate CC from the last pick of the Camelot Kings, but I'm just so thankful it wasn't King Arthur that I think Guan Yu
really
just so much better. Yeah, King Arthur, no thank you, not yet.
Okay.
Let's see some more itemization changes before King Arthur's back in the meta. His CC's good, King Arthur's that is, but you're not really beadsing anything besides his ultimate as well. So Guan Yu going to give over additional sustain, additional cooldown reduction to the rest of his team. And I'd always said Guan Yu feels very good when there's another healer on the squad, just even further boosting your in combat and out of combat sustain, especially around these fire giant dances, these gold fury dances. I think maybe even if anything, the Guan Yu likely locked in as an answer to the Thoth. King Arthur has a very difficult time chasing out Thoth, closing gaps, sticking to him. Guan Yu not exactly in that same department. Hop on the Horus, chase him down. You've got the slow, the Talu Assault that very easily lets you walk forward while simultaneously outpouring damage. So Guan Yu, great pick to round out the draft for the Camelot Kings here. It's going to take a little while, but this Kings draft is very good in a late-game team fight. Very good once they're allowed to group up and play together. As for the laning phase and the early game, that's going to be a concern now. Rom takes a little while, needs itemization. Hebo in the exact same position. Fortunately for the Hebo, the Fenrir ban from the Camelot Kings has removed that patented Oni Warriors counter matchup of immediately locking in the Fenrir in response. But Susano still very capable of jumping on the Hebo throughout the early and making it a bit harder for him to farm up. And when linked with Aphrodite, I mean, it's the cringe E-couple combo for a reason. Just very good at facilitating that Susano and allowing him to play his own game. The Thoth banned out pretty consistently so far this set, probably because of how strong he is at applying anti-heal. I imagine it's going to be a second, maybe third item, Divine Ruin. Make it very difficult to leverage the sustain on the Camelot Kings. And that's not to say that the Kings haven't similarly got decent applicators of anti-heal, but it's not at the same level as the Thoth. I like both drafts from these teams. I couldn't say whether one or the other is heavily favored J-Mac. I think it's all going to be play on field here for Game 3.
It's going to be a difficult game number 3 and one that you are surely not going to want to miss out on. Can the Camelot Kings be the first team to dismantle the Oni Warriors, or are the Warriors going to stay undefeated? To do that, we'll jump right into game number 3 with Gore and Trelly.
That's right. It all comes down to this game, mainly just to see if the Warriors can continue an insane win streak right now. I mean, you're talking about a team that is 7-0 in Phase 1, 3 sets before that on top of it because of the kickoff tournament. The Kings is one of those teams they beat then, and Trelly, they're going to try to do it again now. It's the Hebo for Twig that I'm looking at immediately, because yesterday, a game they lost was because of a Hebo, and a game they won was also admittedly partially because of a Hebo.
That is true. This is a pick that CaptainTwig loves to go to. It's been banned away from him a lot. It's got a good matchup. If you can get ahead, of course, that's always the big switch up. If you're able to close gap and blink onto a Thoth, there's nothing Thoth can do. Can't charge up the ult, you're going to get knocked up. But if you don't have that blink, of course, you can get outranged. There are counters and counters to the counters throughout the entirety of this 5 versus 5. And I'm looking at the Vamana. It's not like Serqet gets any profuse value on everyone except for really CaptainTwig. He's the only immobile guy that he's going to be able to just stomp away on. But Genetics has the Riptide, so should be able to help out their team run away from this Colossal Fury. the team fights are going to be interesting. It really is going to be a lot about who shows up first, who gets aggressive first. If you have this ease of setup, I mean, with the way Variety was playing last game, I'd be looking towards this Guan Yu to start the fights whenever, right? I mean, it's not like you have this big skill shot stun like the Cerberus, but Variety's just on point today, and I'd be looking for him to be the engage from the start of this fight till the whole way till the end of it.
He has been just an insane factor throughout the last game. Maybe something that he can do again this one. Very similar to last game as well. Jarcorrr taking a little extra poke in the duo lane. Always difficult when there's an Afro here, though. Normally, Trelly, we're talking about the fact that you could typically shut down an Afro. You go over there pre-level 5 as the jungler. Can Hebo do that? He doesn't have the same like close gap. He does have the blink, so maybe there's something in there. But is it the same with a Hebo? Can you actually go over and bully Jake?
You can certainly try. I mean, the blink knock up 1, pop your cooldown shard, 1 again, knock up again, 1 more time, your 1's back up. You know, he has very low cooldowns. So it is certainly possible. It's all about matching that pressure, though. Netrioid forced into the beads because of the dash and the stun in from Genetics. That opens up some doors. Not like the beads is going to be that useful up against a Hebo. You're still going to eat the damage, but hey, don't get knocked up. And Pegon just dashing in, making sure to pepper damage over towards CaptainTwig. Maybe that's the excuse. Now CaptainTwig can't gank. He's getting too low. He's got to sustain up some more HP first.
Keep your team safe by stopping the gank before it happens. Preemptive play. That's what Pegon's all about. It's a really fun team to watch when you get picks like this. I think both of these teams, right? You're seeing a lot of, I want to say, classic combos from the Kings. And some that maybe aren't as classic. But as of late, have been winning me over through and through. Saw it on Vamana. You had mentioned Variety on the Guan Yu, but I think that this Vamana has been a pick that has treated them well. The Afro has been a pick that has treated them well. In fact, one of the only teams where it has treated them well. And so a lot of wiggle room for this to work. You had actually said it yesterday. We were casting the Warrior set then when Jake had locked in an Afro, and you said normally your issue is that it's very difficult because you have to, you know, link to the carry, who's going to be the carry, things like that. And this team is surrounded by carries.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you can make a bad decision, it's still good.
I'm thinking that same conversation is true here, except for Pegon. You don't really get much value for kissing the Thoth unless you're immuning and just trying to keep him alive. Everyone else has the ability to just get active in the back line and really shred through with lots of auto attack damage or just burst, which is what Panitom will provide. So yeah, a little bit of an Afro buff when it is Awesome Jake as opposed to, you know, other Afro players. But it looks like not so much aggression just yet. CaptainTwig has been sort of looking around saying, hey, I can't close gap yet. I want Crushing Wave once I get access to that ultimate. My ganks get a lot easier. And Panitom also has the blink. So both of these junglers certainly scouring the map looking for opportunities, but haven't found them just yet. Which, to be honest, is kind of par for the course, given the way this set has gone. Not too much early sparks flying. There's been a lot of looking around. Hey, maybe we can invade. Maybe we can get active. Not going to step up. You know, you don't want to overstay your welcome, especially in a Game 3 situation here. A little bit of scrapping towards Twig. The pull back in is good, but is Twig going to panic ult out? So far, he's deciding not to.
Stun, you would think. Nice
Undying
immunity
love
from Jake. And then the knock-up immediately afterward. Panitom gets first blood, teleports forward as well. BigManTingz have enough disengage. Trelly was so fast, I saw the grouping. There were 4 on left. I was like, oh, this is easy. Go for the Fury. It's still 4 minutes. It hasn't spawned in yet. Genetics joins Jarcorrr. Netrioid falls back, but a first blood for the jungle and a beautiful set of plays for the Warriors.
Yep, Undying Love. Easy confirmation there. And I'm pretty sure if you are Hebo, you could have ulted out. CaptainTwig had that option of using Crushing Wave just to go defensively. But he really wanted the opportunity to kill there. Maybe thought the link was going to break. In this case, Variety and saw trade ult for ult, and now CaptainTwig's on the way, but Panitom's even wrapping around him.
Gets the gank. No ult this time for either of the junglers, but the damage is there. Teleport available, but Panitom's not going to take it. Instead, wants to look and hunt in the back of the jungle. Should know the blue buff timer, knows it's coming up soon. Might go for Variety.
No.
It'll take a little bit of time for Twig to get back here. All he needs is a little bit of a pullback, knock up, pull in, and then the damage is there. Sot picks it up, but it's on the back of Panitom that the kill happens. And Trelly, who needs a blue buff invade? If you can just kill the guy that's going to take it.
Yep, so clean. Variety could have easily immuned if he was able to just go into that Talu assault, but he also knew, hey, if I get pulled back by Panitom, that's GG. That's what I'm definitely dying. So he tried to hold it as long as possible, and that's why Sot went into the knock-up first to make sure he couldn't use it. Panitom gets the pullback in, and plenty of damage coming his way. So Variety gets shut down and loses his blue buff. Unfortunate, but not going to be the end of the world. He's got the teleport. He didn't decide to use it because the wave wasn't that big of a deal. And this Guan Yu, it's not going to. It's pretty difficult to try and bully Guan Yu. CaptainTwig actually was able to walk over and confirm his buff, so he's not going to lose that. And he still does have that MP5 to just spam his heal in lane. But you saw Sot and Variety both traded ults, and that was kind of the end of that engagement. You're not going to be able to pressure the Guan Yu that easily as a Vamana, unless, of course, Panitom comes over once again and keeps trying to put pressure into that lane.
Panitom, I was thinking, was making a beeline over here. No, it's just the speed buff. Typical jungler. Gonna pause and find whatever experience he can. Now, though, maybe up in the air a little bit more. Mid-camps seem to be the option. He's got a level up on Twig. And we've talked about this a lot, right? A Hebo, whenever you die early on, suddenly becomes a conversation of find a kill or nose down to the grindstone. You are farming, and maybe you're able to go help affect something on the other side. Right now, he's walking over towards Sot. And I'm having some deja vu. Guan and Hebo versus Sot on Vamana. Vamana up in the ult. Colossal Fury used. Gets aggressive. Stomps out Variety. Then even turns some damage towards Twig in the 1v2. Panitom's over here. Force the ult from the Guan Yu.
Was that enough to bait him, really?
And now they're trying to pull him in. There's going to be a pull onto Twig. A little bit of extra damage. A lot more than I expected. Panitom forces Twig into a TKO, back to base, loses out on some farm. Guan doesn't have ult, but it doesn't seem like Panitom thinks they can get the kill.
Yeah, I was... You could tell that CaptainTwig was like, yeah, Vamana's here, no ult, but I'm pretty sure Panitom's nearby, so let's not step up. Then SOT walks up, uses his dash to try and engage, and just say, hey, look, you can fight me, I'm right here. And that was enough to make CaptainTwig step up. Luckily, did not get too aggressive upon him. Panitom didn't trade ults, so that would have been a pretty easy way to just immune that Typhoon. That's going to be the end of the aggression on the right side of the map. No invade will take place, and that's pretty much it. I saw in mid lane for a bit, Pegon has just been putting out so much damage, trying to force back BigManTingz. That's kind of how that Thoth matchup works. Anyone that can immediately close gap and 1v1 you is just going to get outranged, outpoked, and they're going to spend a lot of their time just underneath the tier 1 tower. But Pegon really isn't able to finish those kills unless Tingz just gets absolutely smacked by an ultimate. And with Flicker available, you should be able to juke that every single time. You just wait to see where it comes, flicker away, that sort of thing. Unless you're getting barrel stuff, you're going to be just fine. I don't imagine any solo kills come out unless BigManTingz also gets aggressive and tries to find that same level of poke that Pegon's able to dish out.
Which is, at this point, difficult.
Very difficult.
It's not just can you find the same, like even the damage numbers if you can match it is one thing. Then you have to top the range that Pegon has all of a sudden. Man, that Thoth becomes just such an awkward burden to deal with.
He's a
1900
bird,
gold in hand. He's a bird. Yeah, yes.
You said awkward
He's
burden.
a bird, Den.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a meme out there that's Joe Biden as a bird, and that's burden. Somebody's got. If it's not, somebody's got to make that.
Okay.
Just for the bad pun, man. Where are we at? Yeah, that's all right. Mid lane, 2,000 gold in hand. Maybe something that could be happening.
Maybe some
aggression in the duo lane. Genetics has walls, but hasn't dropped them yet. Twig, aggressed on by Panitom. Falls back and uses the polymorph, so the ult gone for Twig. Some safety disappearing in that. No beads, no Aegis. Just the blink, the cooldown shard. 0, 1, and 0, and I feel like we've seen him spend just as much time backing to base as we have gotten to see him in lane.
Yep, and it's just the Warriors of the moment who are looking for that aggression. The Camelot Kings, they grouped up. They said, hey, maybe we can go for a fight, but Panitom is always hunting, always lurking, trying to find CaptainTwig, trying to find that 1v1. And now it looks like they're going for the team fight. Here comes the Fury being pulled. CaptainTwig is back. Doesn't have Crushing Wave, but has the Blink. And it's the Oni Warriors who are trying to fish, see what they can find. And check out Sot. He's not over in lane. He doesn't have Teleport. He's just going to walk all the way over to see if left lane is where they can find that aggression. At the very least, it's going to help out pulling this Gold Fury.
They're starting it up. It's just a question of answers.
There's none.
And there is none, you're right. Well, maybe Genetics is going to walk over here. Can he get close enough to accomplish anything is a completely different conversation, though. Warriors won't let it happen. Jake steps forward. And the pretty simple Fury for the Warriors. Along with 2 relatively simple kills so far this game means at 11 minutes, Trelly, we're starting to push 3,000 gold, actually.
That is going to start to add up, especially if the Oni Warriors just step to Pyromancer and rinse repeat that strategy. SOT is here. There's no ward vision just yet. I was wondering if they're actually going to pull it. I was going to say, with just Pegon, it's going to be difficult to try and burst down the Pyromancer, or at least burn down it. They don't have that consistent auto-attack damage that, of course, Netrioid would provide over on the flip side of the map. So Pyro's going to go untouched for now. But still, you gotta keep that ward coverage available. Pegon has so much range. He could go for the steal. He could go to just half-health someone over the wall. That's the reason we see some sentries being dropped. And already Awesome Drake is going to be able to counter ward. He wants to make sure the Camelot Kings aren't able to try anything sneaky, but so far it's been all Warriors trying to find these fights, right? Twig walks up. He doesn't know where Panitom is, doesn't feel comfortable just walking into a lane blind. And it's always Panitom who's closing gap, putting that jet stream on him and saying, go ahead. Where are you going to go? I'm going to follow you. I'm going to try and fight you. You can't step up to hurt my team. So this Hebo has been largely dealt with so far in the early game. Now we're moving into mid-game. It's 12 minutes in. Still no kills for the Camelot Kings.
2-level lead for Panitom right now. But we were looking at it a second ago, the golden hand for the Hebo specifically. It's getting to the point where I'm anticipating another power spike relatively soon, right? 1,600 gold. You're starting to get Twig into the position where he can potentially get an item. But it's when he's not getting his ult force. What a great play by Panitom. Forces Twig to play defensive. Teleports in anyway. Goes for the Typhoon. Gets the kill. Now the team pulls the Pyromancer 3-0 for the Warriors. But they have been playing this map so well. Variety comes over, looking for a stun. Panitom's low. Walls just a little late, and Panitom gets to walk out of there. Now Jake immune some damage, and they get to walk around. Aggression, aggression, aggression is the story for the Warriors. The Kings are going to rate it, fall back. In the meantime, Trelly, Pyromancer does go the way of the Warriors, so they even get the objective they wanted.
Yeah, but Yark is able to stay over in left lane and get a tower. That is going to start to add up. Netrioid had to make that rotation out, so that definitely does benefit the Rama in this situation. And it's unfortunate for Twig, but there's not much you can do unless you're pre-blinking that pull. Unless you get beads online. Even if you Crushing Wave early, Pegon's got the damage to try and close gap. It's all about the pull into Slitstream. And Pegon did pre-ult that Crushing Wave. Didn't even need the damage because that Typhoon just does so much. The Hebo early, he can get bullied. The question becomes, do you let him get late game? And if so, are you able to immune that damage? But so far, 0-2. And Panitom is 2-0. He's just been looking to try and bully this Hebo as much as humanly possible in the early. And it's been working out for the Oni Warriors. Their gold lead is just climbing despite those towers dropping. One over on left and one over on right. But what is this? I was going to say, are Jake and Panitom trying to dive underneath Tier 1? Even with Undying Love, seems like a risky play.
Sometimes you never know with these two.
Oh boy.
And they're going to just grab teams. Good luck getting out of this one. Teleport's good. Panitom doesn't even have to use the ult. And guess what, Trelly? It's right in time for something on the map. That's what's been impressive about this Warriors draft right now, or this Warriors style right now, is that every single one of these skills has been so well timed around these objectives. This one may be a little too early, but it should still give them an advantage. Tingz has gone for another 15 still. And 10 seconds now till the Fury spawns back up. So a forced 4v5.
Are they going to go for fire?
This is something the Kings have done in the past. When they know a team is making a play on the left side of the map, they're going to shimmy over towards the right
The Warriors know, though.
Not an Oni Fury. Instead, Sot should see this, should know. And another 1450 Fire Giant fight is happening in this set. FG getting down to 1/3 HP. Thoth should have the ult to try and secure. Shot goes through Kings.
He doesn't get
that one, but they have to run away. Jarcorrr solo Sot trying his best to close the gap. They're going to get Twig. They're chasing down a little more. Sot dies, and it's 1-for-1. Warriors try to find the gap. Snipes are too good. Jarcorrr gets himself a double. Jake now just trying to run away, but does not seem like he has a lot to work with. The link disappears,
wow,
and he falls down. The fire and the fight thereafter all go the way of the Kings.
That's insane. I mean, Pegon had the ultimate, but the crushing wave from CaptainTwig puts him out of position. Sure, he dies, but he's able to confirm that Fire Giant. And what looked to be like an Oni Warriors chase down ends up working heavily in favor of the Camelot Kings. They get FG on 4, tier 2 on right, starts to drop, and Jarcorrr lives in the sky. Pegon tried to find that kill. He used his Thoth damage to try and confirm it, but again, the snipes come through. He just has so much damage. And now the Camelot Kings are certainly in the driver's seat here. Tier 2 dropped. There's only one more tier 1 on the map, and they've got the 16-minute FG. What a fast pace. We were talking that the Kings had 0 kills. They were able to find 3, and now they got to push in with their Fire Giant on 4.
They find 3, only lose 1. And even though it's a level lead for Panitom, 0-3-1 now for Twig. Starting to think the Hebo doesn't feel that bad. Variety gets jumped on. Half health immediately. Not able to find
the Warriors aren't
going
to stop, though.
Yeah, no. They're even in gold. They're still technically ahead. They've got 100 in their favor. Oni Fury seems to be where the Warriors want to go.
I love that the Kings have fire, and they're like, well, we can't fight, though. Like, we're not going to step up.
They step back instead. Tier 1 in mid. Maybe going to be the call for the Kings. Get something more with the power play. Only a little bit of time left on this, Trelly. It's the downside, maybe, of the timer being shortened this season. 1 minute left on the power play. It's going to be a tier 2. Warriors are not going to match it. They're going to back.
Panitom isn't back yet.
Set for the defense.
That
Panitom's
Phoenix
still
is
pushing
dropping.
a tier 2. He's going to hold on to it. Phoenix, half health already. Walls coming out, snipes. Not good enough to get rid of Netrioid. He gets to go back to the fountain. Damage is good. Sot diving deep once. Variety has to play it carefully. Falls back. Finally, Panitom, after the tier 2, retreats as well. Phoenix stays alive. Power player. Going to be dead in about 30 seconds. Looks like a penalty kill here for the Warriors.
Those snipes
comes
landed.
At a great cost.
Yeah, and that could have been in some big trouble there if those snipes landed. He was able to hide behind the wall. Gets the guess wrong, so Jarcorrr can't confirm that kill. But man, the Camelot Kings just use the Riptides, use their movement speed as much as possible, send those minions in. And the slow back. Unfortunately, CaptainTwig is going to fall down here, but it looks like Panitom might be in trouble as well.
Has to play carefully, can't get away. The Merlin damage too strong, and it's strong on Jake as well. He's going to get taken down. Good slow from Variety.
More Riptides.
Now they're running down. All they need is the Riptide. Good dash from Pegon. Creates several degrees of separation to make sure it's too difficult for them to play catch-up. That Phoenix is low. They've got 4. The numbers advantage. It seems like the Kings feel they can take this. They're stepping up to the Phoenix line. Genex starts taking it. Jarcorrr has both relics. His ult's about to come back up. Seems like that's going to be the vibe check. The Warriors pass, unfortunately. So the Kings back away. Trelly, they're going to have to reset quickly. Fire Giant spawns in 15.
Yep. Too hard to push into Pegon. He sends out the ultimate immediately to say, hey, I'm not going to fully charge this, but I'm going to half health pretty much everyone. And they say, okay, all right. Message received. We'll back up. No free Phoenix for the Camelot Kings. And as you said, Fire Giant touching down now. The Oni Warriors have been playing this style where Panitom runs away, says, hey, surely they don't go for Fire Giant. In the meantime, I get free farm. Almost comes back to bite them, though, because of how much time he spent over on the left. Again, if those snipes hit, that Phoenix, that mid Phoenix is definitely dropping. But the Camelot Kings, the first ones here to FG, they've got all sorts of vision. But it might be Variety stepping a little bit too far. Doesn't seem like the Oni Warriors are ready to collapse just yet. Waiting on some ults, waiting on some relics. Pegon doesn't have beads or ult for at least 15 seconds on the ult, and a solid 100 seconds on those beads, which is very key to try and keep his Thoth alive.
Pegon, as you mentioned, just waiting for that final judgment. Ult back for Twig as well. So those are here. Relics not looking great if it's the Warriors. Still 20 seconds as well for Netrioid. Kings group up as 5, kind of chase around, do a little dance in mid between the two. Minion wave pushed up on left for the Warriors, but it doesn't have enough push behind it to get that Phoenix. Twig backed, maybe an opening for the Warriors to get aggressive. Vision still in favor of the Kings. And Trelly, it's this awkward moment where neither team, I mean, you aggress here. With the speed of these games, it could be the last fight.
That's true. Yeah, 25 game 1, 28 game 2. We are in the end game territory where one missed fight, one stepping up too far. Panitom finds a pull. If Genetics finds a Riptide, that could just start the engagement that ends this set. But it's still the Camelot Kings who have the aggressive positioning. Pay attention to where the Warriors are. They're still far back. They're not able to step up. And Sot's been 16 for a while now. This Vamana has not been able to find so much farm because they need him as the acting ward. He is the tankiest member of the squad that can step forward and say, yeah, we're good. Fire Giant's not being done. But there's also only one Phantom Shell. So if Awesome Jake steps up too far, a good Rivers of Buke forces it out, you just wait a couple seconds, a couple minutes or so, wait until that Phantom isn't quite back up, and Genetics should be able to find another good engage. Finally, it's the Oni Warriors. They're going to be the first ones to step up, and they make the pull onto the FG.
Yeah, Fire Giant. A third of his health bar disappears fast. Jake has to play carefully. Takes a little bit of poke. The rest of the team still full health bars, so step forward. A Bracer is lost, and that's about it. Those relics, you had mentioned the beads earlier, 100 seconds for Pegon. The 100 seconds has passed. He's got them back, feeling a little safer. They also have to be careful. Backs from the Warriors, backs from the Kings. Both of these teams are pretty willing to just step up, call the others bluff. Kings right now don't have the bird's eye view we do. We know this Fire Giant actually right now might be the easiest that you could probably swipe it away from under the Warriors. Instead, Variety goes a little deep. Jake catches him out. Not going to have any stun. Nothing else. Pyromancer goes the way of the Kings. And Trelly, we step back to stare at each other menacingly.
That is the call. And Awesome Drake has actually caught up to SOT and farm just because of how little this Vamana has gone. I haven't seen Sot go to a wave in such a long time. To be fair, Variety has also been here, just sort of ward coverage. Here's some good engage, and Variety finds a stun, but he gets a little damage.
Good Riptide, but a better Phantom Shell on the other side. Sot goes to the back. But like you said, is fighting in a little bit of a level disadvantage. Warriors still full health. Kings used a lot of utility to open that one up. Relics still up for all the carries. And a push in, pull back, push back in from the Kings. But no Fire Giant, no picks just yet. Variety has to play careful. So he's being the active sentry. Fire Giant, DPS, slightly there for the Kings right now. They're not starting it in earnest. Twig looking for somebody, gets a knock up onto Jake. Kings reset, Warriors reset. The pit goes silent.
I'm not thinking we're going to see a full Fire Giant pull anytime soon. Just because both of these teams recognize, hey, if we're the ones to go for the pull, we take a lot of damage. Even though we have the sustain, it becomes risky. And Pegon and CaptainTwig both have pretty easy ways to confirm the objective. Arguably, CaptainTwig is much easier because it's CC immune. You can't knock it up, you can't stun it. And he's got the blink. If he can stay far back and still go in. Whereas Pegon has to make sure he's number one within range, but also that he's not getting stunned by Variety. He doesn't want to waste his beats just to try and steal the Fire Giant. Those are the kind of things that the Oni Warriors have to keep into consideration. And I'm surprised that someone hasn't went over to left. I mean, those lays have just been dying to each other, essentially. CaptainTwig went over to the chest buff, or the chest camp, but that's about it. No one is pushing that wave because they know this game is bouncing on a knife's edge so far, and all it takes is someone to step up a little bit too far. And Sot is still level 16. I might be harping on it too much, but my man is not farming. He hasn't gotten a wave in such a long time.
I was actually thinking I wouldn't mind seeing him go just right. That tower is so low as well.
Yep. Finally.
I mean, you don't have too much to work with. He was that close to 17 as well. The blue buff, the minion wave, doing some wonders for him. He does step off to the side. Variety and Twig are over here, but there's not enough damage from the Guan Yu to threaten, especially after the sovereignty, what this Vamana has to offer. And Trelly, it's such a weird moment. Tension High in the air. Good stun from Variety. But maybe an early ult at that. Doesn't get any relics, which I think is what he was shooting for. Maybe some ults. He finds neither. There's going to be the Reverse Rebuke, walling off Panitom. Luckily, he's got the Aphrodite. Sot, half health. Has to fall back. Has not used the ultimate. Pegon, however, has. Jake has. Relic still up for the carries. Netrioid tries to lead the way. Good damage. On to Variety. Healing reset for both teams. Charlie, you'll never guess what.
Back to square one.
Almost back to square one. Warriors step in, start up the DPS onto the Fire Giant. They do not have their secure. Remember that. Pegon used his ult, but they pull out Variety, and they get the kill. That's what they needed. Sot goes into the ult, trying to open things up, falls back.
Crushing wave.
It's a 5v4, and that crushing wave, as you mentioned, it's a big threat. You got to worry about it. Pegon almost has ult.
No way they go for this.
And they're going to keep holding on to it. It's getting low. Twig gets zoned out. It doesn't matter. The Kings get it anyway, but they lose 2 in the process. Jarcorrr gets polymorph, uses the beads immediately, has to fall back. Health bars low on the Kings, but safety is there. The Warriors, they lose the Fire Giant. They win the fight. What else can they get?
Something tells me that was their plan. I mean, when you know CaptainTwig is there with Crushing Wave, he didn't end up using it, but still, that Fire Giant was always going to go the way of the Camelot Kings. It was just how many can the Oni Warriors kill after? I'm guessing that was the call. Force them to fight us here. We'll coin flip the FG. Who cares if they get it?
Yeah.
They have shown that they will fight into a Fire Giant anyways. And at this place, they get 2. And now, the Oni Warriors, I suppose, grab a Primal Fury in the meantime. But do you group up and push despite not getting the Fire Giant? That still seems like Tingz, Genetics, and Jarcorrr are threatening enough as is. And they're the ones with the buff. So Pyromancer should be going down to the Camelot Kings. Unless the Runic Bomb just wasn't picked up from the Warriors. Nope, yeah, it's still available, so they can grab that for free. A coin flip that ends up gold-wise for the Warriors, but objective and map state-wise for the Camelot Kings. I just think the Kings aren't going to push with it, though. They're probably going to stall out until EFG.
Minute 40 on the power play. And realistically, maybe just 2.5 minutes that we're going to be sitting here. Maybe looking for something to talk about. No ults used. I mean, Pegon, I thought they were waiting, right? I thought they were going to stop DPS. The Kings, I think, continue it. Waiting for Pegon's ult so they have better secure. Because it's like almost ready, but they need it a little longer. Don't find that. Kings may be able to get a tier 2 on left. That wouldn't be bad to push up. Tier 1 on right finally goes down. It's been sitting there.
Are they going to base race
HP
again? Because I'm kind of down.
And it looks like it for now. I mean, nobody knows where the other is. They see a lot of the Kings on the map.
Yeah, they're both clear. Now the Kings are the ones who lose the race of chicken. They got to go back.
They're losing the tier 2. There's going to be the Bracer. This should be a DPS race. No, the Phoenix. Phoenix is going to live. The Kings back in time. Maybe even surge forward. Genetics can get into a good spot. If Variety can get a good ult. No, never mind. Pegon puts a stopper to that one with a massive ult. Hits Jarcorrr. Takes him down to half health. Panitom goes forward. And they force the River's Rebuke out. And it's just for defense. Variety goes forward. Snipes are good. Panitom, low health. And it's been trading blows back and forth. Twig goes in. Twig gets knocked up. Twig gets killed off. And now the Warriors feel a lot more confident in their capabilities to push forward. They're still playing cautiously, Trelly. Ult's being used. Vamana goes back down to the regular form, but it's a 5v4 around the mid-Phoenix. Fire Giant. The buff wears off in 9. It respawns in 1, and it will inevitably, at this rate, be enhanced if we see another one go down. But the Phoenix is the target for the Warriors.
Awesome, Jake.
Stun immediately onto Jake. Great play by Variety. Sets him up right in the burn from Tingz. And that should put a stopper on the Warriors' aggression.
I was going to say, where's Panitom? He had ult the whole time, but Jake was kissed a Sot. They just really wanted that Phoenix. They can't grab it, and nothing comes from it. Variety's going to take some poke here, I suppose, but it looks like the aggression is not stopping. Here's Panitom. He finally shows up. Remember, there's no Horus.
Teleports in, goes for a little more. They get Variety incredibly low. Typhoon used for disengage. Chunks Jarcorrr as well. But Charlie, that's a lot of ultimate investment right before the Fire Giant comes in. I mean, you're looking at 3 ults that are going to be down when it comes around. The Warriors, they get that 1 kill. They lose 1 as well. 2,000 gold 30 minutes in means nothing. Fire Giant's going to spawn. It's the only neutral objective on the map, the only thing either of these teams care about.
Yep, and it's going to be enhanced. In 10 seconds anyways, and I don't think they're going to burn it in the next 10 seconds. Awesome Jake is going to be a bit late. He's on his way. Assad is stepping forward. Crushing wave, best confirm on the map, and it's available, and it's already half health.
Variety. Chunk down, gets canceled out on the dash, can't get away, but Pegon doesn't have the damage, actually might need some help. No, he's finding enough to TKO Variety, doesn't get the kill, Fire Giant's low, Sot zoning him out, Kings still get the EFG, and the Warriors have to find some kills if they want this to go their way. Jarcorr's low, Jarcorrr up into the air, buying some time, knock up onto Twig, Twig uses the ult, can't get away, dead for both him and Jarcorrr. Variety manages to run away from this one, reset, heal up. And it's EFG for 3 still on the Kings.
Yep, Fire Giant for 3, EFG for 3. That's been the trade, but now these respawn timers are looking a little bit long, and yeah, they've got plenty of healing. They should be able to heal up the tanks and step forward. No minions in tow. How easy is it to grab a Phoenix? I don't think it's going to be very easy. The Oni Warriors are going to grab the tier 2 at the very least, but the Camelot Kings have enhanced Fire Giant on the tanks and BigManTingz. And that seems to be all the push will happen for now. I guess Pyromancer spawns in, so the Oni Warriors will be able to grab it. It was an auto attack from Jarcorrr, by the way, that confirmed the EFG.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the Oni Warriors care. It truthfully seems like they're not trying to confirm it. They just want to fight. Like,
Pegon
hey,
dropped his ult 30 seconds before it respawned. I don't think they care about confirmation.
No, it really does seem the Oni Warriors are like, hey, when we hit this thing, they get closer to us, so we get to fight more. I'm down.
Yo. This guy's an arena button, bro. Like, if you just hit him, they run at you. And we don't even have to worry about minions walking into a gate or any tickets. We just get to play.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been fight central, man. 6-2 and 5 for Panitom, carrying a majority of what the Warriors have been able to pick up. 5 other kills for the rest of the team. 0 and 7 right now for Twig. He has been the lightning rod.
He has been the target for sure.
Variety is... that should be like a 4, maybe a 5. He's just gotten out several times when the Warriors have got him low. No EFG for the Warriors. They aren't stepping up very far. EFG for the Kings. But they've only got it on 3, and it only exists for another minute. They aren't stepping up very far. And Trelly? Yeah. Something tells me we're going to the next Fire Giant.
Well, the Oni Warriors siege forward. There is ward coverage down, so they will be spotted out right now. And in this case, the Camelot Kings are going to have consistent confirm. I imagine the comms are something like, hey guys, we can walk forward, see if we can find a pick, but next time, we should probably try and burst that EFG thing. Like that seems pretty important. We keep winning fights, but we can't push because we don't have that extra boost to our siege. Sot actually finishes his build with a kin size. I guess he feels unkillable and decides he doesn't need any more magical defense or anything like that. Just goes for kins to shred through some of these tankier targets. It's usually a hasten in that slot if you want some extra damage, but Sot feels like he can catch up just fine with the blink. And now the Oni Warriors are they're getting set up early. It's a midnight release for a new game, and they're just going to camp out here, wait for the Fire Giant to spawn in.
They are prepared, man. Look, aggression right now, it's still level 19 for genetics. 005 for the Yemoja, build-wise, actually falling a little behind as well, gold-wise. 475 experience needed.
If he gets 2 more assists, that'll be pretty cool, though.
007?
Yeah.
He's got to be careful, though.
Can't get a kill.
Well, yeah, can't get a kill. Can't die at that point either. Even if that means losing the game, right? Obviously, KDA, way more important here. Fire Giant, 20 seconds out. The Warriors have not been this aggressive in their positioning around the FG in a little bit, right? I mean, maybe you can count that fight in mid as aggressive positioning, considering there was no reason to really turn around and fight it again, other than to maybe get some poke out there. So this is definitely the most confident they've been. Fire Giant comes in. Variety seems to be the target. He doesn't take a lot of damage, though. And it's just like last game. Luckily for Pegon, he can always threaten the ult. Fire Giant's there. Charlie, we'll see. Do they hit the arena button? Start a fight. Right now, dancing around the FG. Trying to pull somebody in. Twig has been their easy kill.
Yeah, Twig is way in the back.
He's patient.
Not putting himself in harm's way just yet.
Guys, I've got ult, I've got blink. Twig does not want to be anywhere near combat.
Yep. Yark actually went back to base, but the Oni Warriors didn't spot that out, so they can't really get aggressive off that play. 2 runic bombs, both on the side of the Oni Warriors, so confirmation does get a bit easier. And instead of just relying on Pegon, maybe that's the reason he's able to send his ults out. The only issue is Sot and Panitom have to be sitting there at the Fire Giant in order to confirm, and they're probably the ones who are wanting to zone. And like I said, you can't drop the bomb. Oh, you get one more. And Sot picks up again. So if he's in his ult just stomping away, it's going to be difficult. But Awesome Jake taking a lot of damage here.
Yeah, has to play cautiously. Pegon tells him to chill, and the Kings listen. They fall back. Jake with healing and sustain shouldn't have too much trouble getting top back off. Sot, though, has to be a little careful. So does Variety, forced to use the ult to disengage. And it's been a lot of damage trading, but one ult has been used in the process. That is Variety on the Kings. Relics are all fine across the board. And Trelly? This started at 23 minutes.
Yep.
And there have been, like, the Fire Giants died in the process, but hardly anything has changed. I think 2 towers fell in that time. The Warriors were able to push up, but that's about all that changed.
Someone's going to have to stop Sot from split pushing.
He's got 2 runic bombs. He could just take this on his own.
Oh, you're right. He might, and he
and
does.
He's going to.
Yeah, he's going to be able to grab it, with at least probably going into his ultimate to fear death. Maybe not. Yeah, no one can do any damage here. And the Fire Giant still started up. The Oni Warriors are so split.
They're going to try and channel this one. Fire Giant's getting low. Pegon still has ult. Could go for it. They get the kill onto Twig, and that's going to be a great opener for him. Now aggression is there. Panitom getting low. Has to play carefully. Warriors finally get themselves a Fire Giant and the fight that's going their way. They open things with the Phoenix. Low health bars means they do a small reset. Genetics, Variety, leaning forward. Jarcorr's low. Tingz untouched. They're going to have to play it safe. Opt instead to fall back. Trelly, finally someone different gets this FG.
Yep.
The question is, what can they do with it? They already got the Phoenix. They have a runic bomb, and this has enhanced the world. It feels like it's their oyster, but still not. It's not a guarantee.
No, it's not guaranteed, but it gets a lot easier. I mean, Enhanced Fire Giant's a big deal. Sot ends up selling the Golden Blade for the Hasten, so now he's just going to be stomping away on just about everyone. Of course, CaptainTwig had a nice ultimate there. It wasn't to try and steal. He didn't care about that. He went for the kill, but Pegon and Netrioid were able to get out scot-free. And now, the first Fire Giant of the game actually going to the Oni Warriors, the team that's been ahead the whole time, means this siege should be a little bit different. And of course, Sot getting that mid-Phoenix down means, of course, Panitom still has his 1 runic bomb. And someone's going to have to deal with fire minions in mid. The question now becomes, who's going to go over to far right? Are you just going to stick together 5v5, where you have to fight into a River's Rebuke, or do you split push a bit? It seems like Awesome Jake wants to stay kissed to Panitom. So I'm thinking you send Sot over to right lane and just push by yourself. No one's going to kill Sot in a 1v1. And he could 1v1 the Phoenix at this point with an EFG, but it looks like, oh, Jake and Panitom want to go and grab the Phoenix for free with the runic bomb. And then the team should siege left while this starts.
That's an easy open. They pull 4 of the Kings over. No one steps forward on left, though. Have to play it cautiously, waiting for their jungler, waiting for the Afro. But a second Phoenix, relatively easy for the Warriors. Those runic bombs paying dividends. They've been sitting there for a little while, too. So the Warriors make them work. Keeping mid pushed up. Oni Fire Wave coming down mid as well. That's going to force some of the Kings to come over. Deal a little more damage. Merlin's got a lot. Twig stunned out. Jake trying to lead the way forward. Tanking the Phoenix right now. Gets Netrioid in for a couple of shots, but Trelly lost the link to Panitom and a small reset for the Warriors.
Don't worry, they found each other again. They won't be alone anytime soon. Just slowly poking down this left Phoenix is the call. They're waiting for fire minions. They're waiting for the minions to walk up. Awesome Jake takes a good bit of damage. Has to ultimate, and Pegon off the mark with Final Judgment. That should be the retreat. Yeah, the Oni Warriors overstayed their welcome. They're fine with getting 1 Phoenix down. I say 1 because that mid-bird will respawn if the full-on retreat happens here from the Warriors, which it seems like it is. I was going to say, Sot's sticking around, but for what? Nothing. EFG time. They want to grab that Pyromancer. These runic bonds have been integral to the split push of the Oni Warriors, so getting that Pyromancer definitely a big deal. Camelot Kings have to deal with fire minions for a little bit longer, though. And the Oni Warriors are once again going to set up camp towards that EFG.
2 waves of fire minions that are still going to be barreling down towards them. I think one more should spawn in mid. It might respawn just in time to cancel that. Nope, one more will in fact spawn. So they're going to have to deal with enough. Tingz, yeah, has to play carefully. Relics are up. So maybe that's some safety. Pyromancer goes this way. No one's picked up the bomb. Pegon, of all people, is going to grab it. I thought they would give it a Sot. Maybe send him back on mid, let him just drop it and run, teleport maybe in. Guess a little short from stunning out Variety. Mid's pushed up, right being pushed up. Fire Giant back in 30.
Twig does not do a lot of damage to Jake. That knock-up, I did not.
He used to.
Yeah.
He's not doing it anymore.
He doesn't even have an upgraded starter, by the way. I mean, Twig is very far behind. We're talking about full build. Everyone's been full build, not Twig. He has been the target, unfortunately, and now SOT pushing up mid, and the Oni Warriors start this one up.
They're going for it. There's going to be the channel from it. Warriors secure that, and the shot hits Jarcorrr in the back immediately. Great damage from Pegon.
Walls the back line.
Up from Genetics, and Sot comes into the back. He should get this kill. He's chasing him down. Goes for the ult, and he's clicking on heads at this point. SoloOrTroll is running him down. Variety's low. Tingz is his target, though. The flicker, the Merlin. He's just trying to run away. It doesn't matter. Panitom and the rest of the Warriors, they're getting stuff done everywhere else on the map. Foregone Variety goes back to base, but with a Phoenix down, the Titan exposed. The Warriors in 42 minutes are gonna take this set.
And some shoddy confirmed for sure around those objectives. I'm thinking if the first 3 Fire Giants don't go the way of the Camelot Kings, this game might be a bit easier, might be a bit quicker, but the Oni Warriors get the job done. And this just goes to show how important Pyromancers are. I mean, Sot gets that mid-bird and opens up their EFG because he's got 2 Runic Bombs. And then much later on, Panitom and Awesome Jake are able to go over to right. They get those Runic Bombs as well. The rest of the map control just becomes a lot more difficult. The Oni Warriors got to be feeling themselves after that one. They officially, they've done the tour, right? They've been able to beat everyone. And they got to be pretty proud of themselves.
You got to imagine that hug at the end kind of conveys what they're feeling. This is a set. Look, it's a regular season game, but those guys, you can feel that there was pressure on them, right?
Yep.
They want to keep this win streak going. They want to kind of prove to them, to everybody, right? It's not just, hey, we're swamping our division. Hey, we're smacking everybody but the Kings. Like, no, we still got it. We are undefeated still in the standings. And like you said, they've done it at least once against a few others. They got 2 matchups this week, or this next week. And I'm worried for those guys, right? they're going to have to deal with the Warriors on this hot streak. It is definitely insane for them, but they win this one 2-1. And of course, Charlie, it takes them 42 minutes to do so. So to try and shove that down into just a few minutes, the desk is going to break it up.
Oni Warriors take the set 2-1 against the Camelot Kings to end things out and keep up their undefeated set streak. Now pushes themselves to 8-0 to start out this phase. And man, one of the longer Oni Warrior games that we've had here, Mifflin, one that we can really try and dissect into. Strong early game from both these teams, the back and forth. CaptainTwig, the unfortunate target of a lot of the damage out there, did have moments where he did bait forward. At least a few members of the Oni Warriors extends that game for the Camelot Kings. Never feels good being the one dying that many times through, but a couple of moments where CaptainTwig's death ends up actually leading to a couple Camelot Kings kills, extends the game out there. But I think right at the very end for the casters to highlight the fact that SOT getting these Runic Bombs, being able to break open these Phoenixes, open up the base, really gives the Warriors the chance to bring this game back.
Yeah, I loved the Oni Warriors in this one. They were constantly looking for individual picks on map, leveraging that absolutely disgusting Aphrodite Susano combo. Prove that they can play it in the late game as well from an even state or even from behind. So that was one of the primary question marks for the fans at home is what do the Oni Warriors look like 45 minutes from behind? They look pretty good, I'd argue, finding opportunities, finding picks, finding objectives, finding their way in and creating win conditions on map. SOT, of course, deserves a ton of credit for opening up the Titan room, but we got to address the elephant in the room, J-Mac, and I think you were a bit charitable for my liking.
a bit too nice about it.
Yeah, the Hebo performance from CaptainTwig left a lot to be desired there. Sure, a couple of times when he's picked out or found on the map, it did result in the Oni Warriors falling down because Twig was able to get far enough back that the rest of the Camelot Kings could bail him out, but team fight presence just wasn't really there, was it? I mean, it felt like at times the Oni Warriors legitimately were playing 5v4.
Well, I've given the benefit of the doubt on a couple of instances, but that's 2 of the unfortunate 9 spills for CaptainTwig throughout that game. Also, just not able to get the player damage out that he was maybe hoping for. It felt like every time he would
less than
blink
genetics.
in, he would try and blink in, get those big crushing wave moments, but every time he went for that blink, it was followed by a knock-up or a pull or some form of CC to lock him down, then pretty much death immediately beyond there. So CaptainTwig and the Camelot Kings falling to the Oni Warriors this time. An undefeated record continues to go through 8 games in the regular season and 3 from the SPL kickoff tournament, which means now 11 in a row for the Oni Warriors. And we talked to a lot of the members of the Oni Warriors. Haven't really got a chance to talk to the coach, so we've got Oxy standing by for our post-game interview.
That's right. It's Oxy, and I'm sure feeling very relieved after a win there. And we were actually just talking about it. I do want to ask, what is it with game 2s? What's going on with the game 2s, man? Each of these go 3, you keep winning. What's going wrong in game 2?
We always just give some advantage for the enemy, so we're humble. we leave one game.
Yeah, you want to give them a win, right? Yeah. It's just generosity.
Yeah.
And so you guys are able to win this, right? You come out. I kind of want to know to you, especially as the coach, watching that game, how worried are you, right? You keep seeing the fights maybe going your way, Fire Giants going the other way. What are you thinking in the coach's room?
Well, it's super stressful. I mean, they can take the Fire, but we take the Titans. Mm-hmm. So I always say that we don't lose till the Titan is dropped. So just focus and keep going.
And that's what they did, right? They held on. They keep the fights going. You guys are undefeated. And I just kind of want to know to you, how does that feel? Like, you've beat everybody in the other division at this point. You've beat everybody in your division. It's, 8-0 now, plus the 3 wins at the kickoff tournament. What is it that's keeping this team so far ahead?
I think that everyone wants to win every matchup. We try to beat our counters or last team. So I think it's the focus and the discipline. I'm trying to focus on that, the play well, discipline, always the best play possible.
Well, hey, obviously it's working out, right? You guys are 8-0. Congratulations, man, on the win. It looks fantastic. Thanks for your time. We'll go back to the desk.
Focused and disciplined here for Coach Oxy, but maybe a statement made there is they can have the Fire Giant. We'll take the Titan
relax,
every
dude.
single game. Says Coach Oxy, but the drive to win here for the Oni Warriors, and it's still ringing true for them. 8 sets in a row, and still 2 more for them to go next week if they want to have an undefeated start to their phase, but still 2 more sets today for us to witness 4 more teams throughout. The Jade Dragons and the Gilded Gladiators, our second match of the day, and then we'll close things out with the Eldritch Hounds and the Highland Ravens. Should be 2 great sets to follow up the already barn burner of a first one between the Camelot Kings and the Warriors. The Warriors finding their 2-1, holding their 8-0 record to move into the final week of regular season play in their path to Masters of all, but guaranteed themselves now being able to make sure that they can lock in that first seed for the Oni Warriors. Did that just earlier on in the week, not only them finding a win, but also a tumble by the Jade Dragons and the Atlantis Leviathans means that it's out of reach for them. Now it makes things very interesting over in the Order Division. I'm excited to see what comes through between the Eldritch Hounds, the Highland Ravens trying to find their wins throughout there. We'll have to see those matchups all a little bit later on. We're going to be jumping ourselves right back into the Chaos Division. We've got the Jade Dragons and the Gilded Gladiators match coming up right after this break.